The hotel clerk's words hung in the air like a death sentence. "I'm sorry, sir. One room, one bed. That's all we have left." Lucas Reed felt his stomach drop as his boss, the formidable Claire Holloway, stood silently beside him, her expression unreadable. Outside, lightning split the Chicago sky. Behind them, a crowd of stranded travelers pressed closer, desperate for shelter. Lucas thought of his daughter waiting at home, of the promotion he'd worked 5 years to earn, of every professional boundary he'd carefully maintained. The clerk held out a single key card. What happened next would change everything he thought he knew about his carefully controlled life. If you want to see how one impossible night transforms 2 lives forever, stick with me until the end. And please, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The fluorescent lights of O'Hare International Airport flickered as Lucas Reed checked his phone for the 7th time in 10 minutes. The screen showed the same message it had for the past hour. Flight canceled. He rubbed his tired eyes, feeling every one of his 34 years settle into his shoulders like weights. This is unacceptable. Claire Holloway's voice cut through the ambient chaos of the terminal like a knife through silk. She stood 5 feet away, her phone pressed to her ear, her perfectly tailored navy suit somehow still crisp despite 12 hours of meetings and travel delays. "I don't care what the weather's doing. I have a board meeting at 8 tomorrow morning." Lucas had worked for Claire for 3 years, and in that time, he'd learned to read the subtle variations in her formidable presence. Right now, beneath the commanding exterior, he detected something rare, frustration edging toward genuine concern. It made her seem almost human. "Mr. Reed." She ended her call and turned those sharp green eyes on him. "It appears we're stranded." "Yes, ma'am. I've been monitoring the weather reports. The storm system isn't expected to clear until tomorrow afternoon at the earliest." A ghost of something, amusement, respect, flickered across her face. "Always prepared. That's why you're my best project manager." She paused, and Lucas could practically see her mind working through scenarios, calculating odds, formulating backup plans. "We'll need to find accommodation, somewhere close. The highways are already backing up." Lucas had already pulled up hotel options on his phone. "There are 3 hotels within a mile of the airport. I'll call them now." "Make it quick." "And Lucas?" She met his eyes directly. "Book separate rooms." The emphasis on separate sent an uncomfortable heat up the back of his neck. Of course, separate rooms. The suggestion of anything else was absurd. Claire Holloway was his boss, the vice president of operations at Meridian Technologies. A woman whose yearly salary probably exceeded what he'd earn in a decade. The fact that she was also attractive, in that severe, untouchable way that made men simultaneously nervous and intrigued, was completely irrelevant to their professional relationship. "Of course, Ms. Holloway." The first hotel was fully booked. So was the second. By the time Lucas called the third, a mid-range business hotel called the Skyway Inn, his heart was sinking. "We have 1 room available," the clerk said. "It's a standard queen. We had a last-minute cancellation." Lucas hesitated. "Do you have any rooms with 2 beds coming available tonight?" "Sir, with all due respect, you're lucky we have this one. The storm has half of Chicago stranded. If you don't want it, I have 6 other people waiting." Lucas looked at Claire, who was watching him with those calculating eyes. He covered the phone's microphone. "They have 1 room, 1 bed. That's it." For a long moment, Claire said nothing. Around them, the airport buzzed with the particular chaos of disrupted travel. Crying children, frustrated business people, the crackle of PA announcements. Lucas could see her weighing options, measuring risks, calculating the professional optics against practical necessity. "How far is the hotel?" she asked. "0.8 miles. "And the weather is only getting worse." "Yes, ma'am." She straightened her shoulders in a gesture Lucas had come to recognize as her decision-making tell. "Book it. We're both adults. We can manage 1 night." 20 minutes later, they stood in the lobby of the Skyway Inn, surrounded by dozens of other stranded travelers. The lobby smelled of wet carpet and industrial coffee. Claire's designer luggage looked absurdly out of place among the plastic shopping bags and rumpled backpacks. The desk clerk, a tired-looking woman in her 50s with kind eyes, handed Lucas the key card with an apologetic smile. "Room 847, 8th floor. I've sent up extra pillows and blankets. One of you can take the couch." Lucas glanced at Claire, expecting her to claim the bed immediately. Instead, she simply nodded her thanks and headed toward the elevators, rolling her luggage behind her with the same efficiency she brought to everything. The elevator ride was silent, except for the mechanical hum of machinery and the distant rumble of thunder. Lucas kept his eyes fixed on the ascending floor numbers, acutely aware of Claire's presence beside him. In the office, there were always desks, conference tables, other people, barriers both physical and social that maintained appropriate distance. Here, in this small metal box, there was only proximity and the faint scent of her perfume, something expensive and subtle that he'd never consciously noticed before. The hallway to room 847 seemed to stretch forever. Lucas's roller bag squeaked on the industrial carpet. His shirt, pressed fresh that morning, now stuck to his back with the day's accumulated stress. He thought about his daughter, Emma, safe with her grandmother back in Milwaukee. He'd promised to call before her bedtime, but that window had already passed. She would be asleep by now, her blonde hair spread across her pillow, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2. The thought of Emma steadied him. Whatever awkwardness this night held, it was temporary. By tomorrow, he and Claire would be back in their proper roles. This strange interruption filed away as an odd footnote in an otherwise conventional professional relationship. The key card beeped green. Lucas pushed open the door. The room was exactly what he'd expected from a mid-range business hotel. Beige walls, generic landscape art, a desk with a slightly wobbly chair. And there, dominating the space like an elephant in the center of the room, was one queen-size bed with an aggressively floral comforter. The couch the clerk had mentioned turned out to be a love seat, barely 5 feet long and upholstered in a scratchy-looking brown fabric that had probably been installed during the hotel's last renovation sometime in the previous millennium. "Well," Claire said, breaking the silence, "this is cozy." Lucas couldn't tell if she was being sarcastic or genuinely trying to lighten the mood. With Claire, it was often impossible to distinguish between the two. "You should take the bed," he said quickly. "I'll be fine on the couch." She turned to look at him fully for the first time since they'd entered the room. In the soft lighting, her features seemed less severe than they did under the harsh fluorescence of the office. There were fine lines around her eyes he'd never noticed before, and a small scar near her left eyebrow that makeup usually concealed. "Lucas, you're 6'2". That couch would cripple you." "I've slept in worse places, ma'am." "Stop calling me ma'am. We're not in the office." She set her luggage beside the desk and began removing her suit jacket with brisk, efficient movements. "We'll figure out the sleeping arrangements later. Right now I need to get out of these clothes and into something that doesn't feel like body armor." She disappeared into the bathroom with her overnight bag, leaving Lucas standing awkwardly in the middle of the room. He could hear the sound of running water, the zip of luggage, small sounds of a private ritual he had no business being privy to. He moved to the window, pulling back the heavy curtains to reveal the storm in full force. Rain lashed the glass in sheets. Lightning strobed across the sky, illuminating the skeletal frames of construction cranes and the distant lights of the airport. Somewhere down there, hundreds of people were stranded, sleeping on terminal floors or fighting for the last available rooms. He and Claire were lucky, really. This could be worse. His phone buzzed, a text from his mother. Emma went down easy. "Don't worry, stay safe in the storm." He typed back quickly. "Thanks, Mom. Tell her I love her. I'll call in the morning." The bathroom door opened. Lucas turned, then immediately wished he hadn't. Claire had changed into black yoga pants and an oversized gray sweater that slipped off one shoulder. Her hair, usually pinned in a severe bun, hung loose around her face in soft waves. Without her armor of suits and makeup, she looked younger, softer, and somehow more real than the woman who commanded boardrooms and intimidated senior executives. "I don't bite, you know," she said, catching his expression. "Well, not outside of budget meetings." Despite himself, Lucas smiled. "I've seen you make grown men cry over quarterly projections." They had it coming. The numbers don't lie. She moved to the desk and began setting up her laptop with the same precision she brought to everything. "I need to send a few emails. Make yourself comfortable." Lucas grabbed his own bag and retreated to the bathroom, grateful for a few minutes alone. The space was small but clean, smelling of industrial soap and the lingering sweetness of Claire's perfume. He caught sight of himself in the mirror, rumpled shirt, loosened tie, 2 days of stubble darkening his jaw. He looked tired. More than that, he looked like what he was. A single father who'd been running on coffee and determination for so long, he'd forgotten what it felt like to actually rest. He changed into jeans and a t-shirt, splashed cold water on his face, and tried to construct a mental framework for how this night would go. Professional, courteous, brief. They would work for a while, maybe watch separate shows on their respective devices, then figure out some dignified sleeping arrangement. By morning, the storm would have passed, and everything would return to normal. When he emerged, Claire was sitting cross-legged on the bed, laptop balanced on her knees, glasses perched on her nose. Lucas had never seen her wear glasses before. They made her look scholarly, approachable. "There's a coffee maker," she said without looking up from her screen. "It's terrible hotel coffee, but it's better than nothing." Lucas busied himself with the coffee maker, grateful for a task. The machine gurgled and hissed, filling the room with the bittersweet aroma of cheap grounds. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky like a bowling ball down cosmic lanes. "Do you take anything in yours?" he asked. "Black, like my soul." She said it deadpan, still focused on her screen, and Lucas found himself laughing, a real laugh, not the polite chuckle he usually offered to Superior's jokes. She glanced up, a small smile playing at the corner of her mouth. "That actually came out funnier than I intended." "You have a sense of humor. I had my suspicions, but this confirms it." "Don't let it get around the office. I have a reputation to maintain." She accepted the coffee mug he handed her, their fingers brushing briefly. "Thank you." Lucas settled into the desk chair with his own mug, trying to create as much physical distance as the small room would allow. He pulled out his tablet and opened the files for the presentation they delivered that morning, a pitch to a potential client for a complete technology overhaul that would be worth millions to Meridian if it went through. "We did well today," Claire said, as if reading his thoughts. Harrington was impressed. You could see it in how his objections shifted from if to how. "You closed him when you pivoted to the implementation timeline. That was masterful." "That was your idea. I just delivered it." She took a sip of coffee, made a face at the taste, but kept drinking. "You should have more confidence in your contributions, Lucas. You have good instincts." The compliment caught him off guard. Claire wasn't stingy with professional praise, but she usually delivered it in formal settings. Performance reviews, team meetings. This felt different, more personal. "Thank you. That means a lot, coming from you." "I don't say things I don't mean. It's inefficient." She closed her laptop and set it aside, removing her glasses and rubbing the bridge of her nose. "How's your daughter? Emma, right?" Lucas felt his shoulders relax slightly. Emma was safe territory, a subject he could discuss with genuine warmth. "She's good. Started first grade this year. She's obsessed with butterflies right now. Everything has to be butterfly-themed, her lunchbox, her backpack, her pajamas." "That's sweet. My nephew went through a dinosaur phase that lasted 2 years. My sister thought she'd lose her mind." "I didn't know you had a sister." "2 of them, both married, both with kids, both living the suburban dream in Connecticut." There was something in her voice, not quite bitterness, but a complicated edge that suggested those family dynamics weren't entirely smooth. "Are you close?" Claire seemed to consider the question, turning her coffee mug in her hands. "We're cordial. Holiday cards and birthday calls. They don't really understand my life, and I don't really understand theirs. We exist in parallel universes that occasionally intersect at Thanksgiving." The honesty surprised him. In 3 years, he'd never heard Claire discuss anything personal. She was a master of the professional deflection, turning every casual question into a work-related topic. "That must be difficult," Lucas said carefully. "It is what it is." She shrugged, but Lucas caught the tightness around her eyes. "They think I'm married to my career. They're not wrong. When you're a woman in tech, you can't afford to be anything less than twice as good and half as demanding as the men. It doesn't leave much room for other things." Lightning flashed, filling the room with stark white light for a split second. In that brief illumination, Lucas saw something in Claire's expression that he'd never seen before. Not vulnerability exactly, but a kind of weariness that suggested the weight she carried was heavier than anyone knew. Thunder followed, a deep rumble that rattled the windows. "Do storms bother you?" Claire asked, noticing him tense. "Not really. I grew up in Wisconsin. You learn to live with the weather." He paused, debating whether to share, then decided the strange intimacy of the moment warranted honesty. "Emma doesn't love them, though. She has a whole routine, checks that all her stuffed animals are accounted for, makes sure her nightlight is working. My mom knows the drill." "Your mother watches her when you travel?" "She moved in after—" He stopped, the familiar tightness constricting his chest. "After my wife died. Emma was only 2. I couldn't do it alone." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable exactly, but it was weighted. Lucas kept his eyes on his coffee, waiting for the usual response. The awkward condolences, the pitying looks, the inevitable follow-up questions that people never really wanted answers to. Instead, Claire said quietly, "That must have been impossibly hard." It was perfect, acknowledging the reality without demanding details, offering sympathy without drowning him in it. Lucas looked up, meeting her eyes, and saw genuine understanding there. "Some days still are," he admitted. "But Emma's amazing. She's this bright, funny, resilient little person who somehow came out of all that loss still believing the world is good. She keeps me honest." "She's lucky to have you." "I'm the lucky one." Claire smiled, a real smile, soft and unguarded. "I believe that. You light up whenever you mention her. It's nice to see someone who hasn't been completely consumed by corporate life." "Is that what happened to you?" He regretted the question immediately, certain he'd overstepped. But Claire didn't look offended. Instead, she drew her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them in a gesture that made her look younger, more uncertain. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe I just never figured out how to want anything else." She was quiet for a moment, then continued. "I was engaged once, long time ago. He was nice, stable, wanted all the traditional things, house, kids, minivan. I kept saying yes eventually, but eventually never came. He got tired of waiting for me to choose him over my career. He wasn't wrong to leave. That doesn't make it hurt less." "No, but it was 8 years ago. I barely remember what he looked like now." She took another sip of terrible coffee. "Isn't it strange how people can be so important to us and then just fade? Like they were never really there at all." Lucas thought about Sarah, his wife, Emma's mother, the woman who'd shaped his entire adult life. She'd been gone for 4 years, and while the sharp edges of grief had dulled, he could still see her face clearly, hear her laugh, remember the exact shade of blue her eyes had been. "Some people don't fade," he said. "Some people stay." "The important ones," Claire agreed. "Emma's mother, she stays with you. Every day. And Emma's laugh, the way she wrinkles her nose when she's thinking hard, her absolute certainty that people are good until proven otherwise." He smiled, though it ached. "Sarah was like that. Relentlessly optimistic. It drove me crazy sometimes, how she could find the bright side of anything." "What happened? If you don't mind me asking." Lucas did mind, in the sense that talking about Sarah always felt like reopening a wound that had only partially healed. But there was something about this strange night, the storm, the isolation, Claire's unexpected openness, that made honesty feel not just possible, but necessary. "Car accident, black ice, wrong place, wrong time. She was on her way to pick up Emma from daycare." The words came out flat, recited. He'd told this story so many times it had become a script. "The doctors said she didn't suffer. I'm not sure I believe them, but I want to. For Emma's sake, I need to believe Sarah's last moments weren't filled with fear. And you were left alone with a 2-year-old, and a mortgage, and a job that required travel, and absolutely no idea how to do any of it without her." He rubbed his face, feeling the exhaustion of those early days even now. "My mother saved us. She sold her house, moved into ours, basically became Emma's second parent. I don't know what I would have done without her." "You would have found a way. People do." "Maybe. But it would have broken me in the process." He looked at Claire directly. "Is that why you work so hard? To avoid being broken?" The question hung between them, too honest, too raw. Lucas half expected her to shut down, to retreat behind her professional armor and change the subject. Instead, she held his gaze, considering. I work hard because I'm good at it, she said finally. Because building things, fixing systems, solving impossible problems, that makes sense to me. People don't make sense. Relationships don't follow logical patterns. You can do everything right and still lose. That's true. So why risk it? Why open yourself up to that kind of pain? It was Lucas's turn to consider. Outside, the storm continued its assault, rain drumming against the windows like impatient fingers. He thought about the question, really thought about it, examining his own choices and motivations with the kind of honesty he usually reserved for late-night conversations with himself. Because the alternative is worse, he said. Living safe, protected, alone. That's not living. That's just existing, surviving, and life's too short and too precious to spend it just surviving. Claire was quiet, her expression unreadable. Then, so softly, he almost didn't hear it over the storm, she said, I'm not sure I know how to do anything else. The admission pierced something in Lucas's chest. He saw her clearly then, not as the formidable VP who terrified executives and commanded seven-figure budgets, but as a woman who'd built such perfect armor around herself, she'd forgotten there was still a person underneath. Can I ask you something? He said. You just did, but go ahead. Oh, when's the last time you did something just because you wanted to? Not for career advancement or networking or strategic positioning, just because it made you happy. Claire opened her mouth, then closed it, opened it again. I don't know. That's terrifying. I know. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. See? This is what happens when you peel back the layers. Underneath the competent executive is just this. A woman who doesn't know what makes her happy anymore. Then maybe it's time to find out. Is that what you did, after Sarah? Lucas nodded slowly. I had to. I was drowning in grief, barely keeping my head above water. But I had Emma, and she needed me to be present, not just physically there, but actually alive. So I started small. I'd take her to the park and actually watch her play instead of checking my phone. We'd make pancakes on Saturday mornings, terrible misshapen ones that were burnt on one side. I learned that she loves butterflies and hates carrots, and has my wife's gift for making friends wherever she goes. He smiled, remembering. Those little moments, they saved me. They reminded me that life wasn't over, just different. You're a good father. I'm a trying father. There's a difference. He finished his coffee, grimacing at the cold, bitter dregs. But, yeah, I'm doing my best. That's all any of us can do, right? Claire unfolded herself from the bed and stood, stretching. Her sweater rode up slightly, revealing a strip of pale skin at her waist. Lucas looked away quickly, fixing his gaze on the storm outside. I should try to get some sleep, she said. Tomorrow's going to be chaos, rescheduled meetings, angry clients, the board wanting explanations. Right, of course. Lucas stood as well, suddenly aware of how small the room really was, how there was nowhere to look that didn't include Claire in his peripheral vision. About the sleeping situation. You take the bed, I'll take the couch. Claire, that's ridiculous. You're like 5'6". I'm a foot taller. Basic geometry says I should take the couch. Basic hierarchy says I'm pulling rank. She smiled, taking the sting out of it. Besides, I can curl up small. You'd end up folded like a pretzel. They stood there, locked in a stubborn standoff, neither willing to concede. The situation would have been funny if it weren't so absurd. Two adults arguing over who got to be uncomfortable. Finally, Claire sighed. We're being ridiculous. It's a queen-sized bed. We're both adults. We can share it like mature professional people and maintain appropriate boundaries. Lucas's heart kicked against his ribs. Are you sure? Unless you snore like a chainsaw or kick in your sleep, I think I'll survive. She moved to one side of the bed and pulled back the covers. We'll put pillows between us. Very Jane Austen. I don't think Jane Austen's characters shared beds with their employers. Then we're making history. She climbed into bed, staying firmly on her side, and looked at him expectantly. Are you going to stand there all night, or are you actually going to sleep? Lucas hesitated one more moment, then made a decision. This was just sleep. Two people, exhausted from travel and stress, sharing space out of necessity. Nothing more complicated than that. He gathered the extra pillows and created a barrier down the middle of the bed, a soft, fluffy Berlin wall. Then, moving carefully, he got into bed on his side, staying as close to the edge as physically possible without falling off. Comfortable? Claire's voice came from the other side of the pillow barrier. Terrified, but sure. She laughed, a genuine sound that made something warm unfurl in his chest. Me too, but I think we'll survive. Lucas reached over and turned off the lamp on his nightstand. The room plunged into darkness, broken only by the occasional flash of lightning. He could hear Claire's breathing, slow and steady, and the relentless percussion of rain against the windows. Lucas? Yeah? Thank you for talking, for being real. I don't get that a lot. Same. Thank you. Silence settled over them, but it was a comfortable silence now, the kind that exists between people who've seen past each other's carefully constructed facades. Lucas closed his eyes, certain he wouldn't sleep, that he'd spend the whole night hyper-aware of Claire's presence just inches away. But exhaustion had its own logic. The tension slowly drained from his muscles, his breathing synchronized with the rhythm of the rain. And somewhere in the small hours of the morning, as the storm began to ease, Lucas Reed fell into the first truly restful sleep he'd had in months. He didn't know that on the other side of the pillow wall, Claire Holloway lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering when she'd last felt this strange combination of peace and possibility. Wondering what it meant that talking to her project manager felt more intimate than anything she'd experienced in years. Wondering if, maybe, there was more to life than quarterly projections and strategic plans. But those were questions for tomorrow. Tonight, there was just the storm, the darkness, and two people finding unexpected comfort in each other's company. The night was far from over. Lucas woke to pale gray light filtering through the curtains and the disorienting sensation of warmth against his back. For a moment, still caught in the fog of sleep, he thought he was home in his own bed. Then awareness returned in a rush. The hotel room, the storm, Claire. He opened his eyes slowly, afraid to move. The pillow barrier they'd so carefully constructed had collapsed sometime in the night, reduced to a scattered pile at the foot of the bed. And Claire, who had claimed her side with such determination, was now curved against him, her face pressed against his shoulder blade, one arm draped across his waist. His heart hammered against his ribs. He needed to move, to extract himself before she woke, and they both had to acknowledge this breach of their careful boundaries. But her breathing was so peaceful, deep and even, and some traitorous part of him didn't want to disturb that peace, didn't want to move away from this unexpected warmth. The decision was made for him when Claire stirred, her breath catching. He felt her stiffen, felt the exact moment awareness returned to her as well. Oh God! Her voice was rough with sleep, mortified. She pulled away quickly, putting distance between them. I'm sorry, I must have. It's okay. Lucas sat up, running a hand through his hair, not looking at her. We were both asleep, it happens. It shouldn't have happened. She was already out of bed, gathering her things with jerky, agitated movements. I'm going to shower. We should get to the airport early, try to get on the first available flight. She disappeared into the bathroom before he could respond, the door closing with a definitive click. Lucas sat on the edge of the bed, his heart still racing, trying to process what had just happened and what it meant. Nothing, he told himself firmly. It meant nothing. Two people, exhausted and unconsciously seeking comfort in sleep. The human body's natural response to proximity. Nothing more. But his shoulder still felt warm where her face had pressed against it. He checked his phone, 6:30 in the morning. 3 missed calls from his mother, all from late last night. He called her back immediately, guilt twisting in his stomach. Lucas, thank God. His mother's voice was tight with worry. I've been trying to reach you. I'm sorry, Mom. My phone was on silent. Is Emma okay? She's fine. She's still sleeping, but she had a rough night. The storm scared her. She kept asking for you. The guilt intensified, sharp and familiar. Can you wake her? I want to talk to her. Are you sure? It's early. Please. He heard rustling footsteps, his mother's gentle voice calling Emma's name. Then, after what felt like an eternity, his daughter's sleepy voice. Daddy? Hey, Butterfly. Mom said you had a scary night. The thunder was really loud. Grandma let me sleep in her bed. That was nice of her. I'm sorry I wasn't there. It's okay. Grandma said you were keeping Ms. Claire safe from the storm. Lucas glanced at the bathroom door, behind which he could hear the shower running. Something like that. Is Miss Claire nice? Yes, she's nice. Does she like butterflies? Despite everything, Lucas smiled. I don't know, baby. I've never asked her. You should ask her. Everybody should like butterflies. I'll do that. Listen, I'm going to try to fly home today. I should be there tonight. Promise? I promise to try my very hardest. Be good for Grandma, okay? I'm always good. You're always something, he said, warmth flooding his chest. I love you, Emma. Love you too, Daddy. After he hung up, Lucas sat for a moment, letting the sound of his daughter's voice settle his racing thoughts. This was what mattered, being present for Emma, being the father she needed. Everything else was noise. The bathroom door opened. Claire emerged in a cloud of steam, dressed in fresh clothes, her armor of professionalism firmly back in place. Her hair was still damp, pulled back in a tight bun. She didn't quite meet his eyes. Bathroom's free, she said, her tone brisk and businesslike. I checked the flight status. The first departure to Milwaukee is at 9:15. I pulled some strings. We're both confirmed. Thank you. We should grab breakfast in the lobby and head out by 7:30. Claire, we don't need to talk about it, Lucas. She was shoving her laptop into her bag with more force than necessary. We both know what happened. We both know it was meaningless. Let's just move forward professionally. The word meaningless stung more than it should have. Lucas wanted to argue, to say that maybe it hadn't been meaningless, that maybe something had shifted between them last night in a way that couldn't be undone by morning light and professional distance. But what would be this point? She was his boss. He had a daughter to raise. There was no version of this that didn't end in complications neither of them could afford. Right, he said quietly. Professional. He gathered his things and retreated to the bathroom, closing the door on Claire's carefully neutral expression. Under the hot spray of the shower, he tried to wash away the memory of waking up with her warmth against him, the strange sense of rightness he'd felt in that half-asleep moment. It was just proximity, he told himself. Just two lonely people finding accidental comfort. It didn't have to mean anything. But as he dressed and packed his bag, he couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed, and no amount of professional distance could change it back. They ate breakfast in near silence, seated at a small table in the hotel's lobby restaurant. Claire focused intently on her phone, responding to emails with sharp, efficient taps. Lucas pushed scrambled eggs around his plate and tried not to think about how comfortable their conversation had been just hours ago, how easy it had felt to talk to her about things he rarely discussed with anyone. The board meeting has been rescheduled to tomorrow, Claire said without looking up. I'll need the Harrington implementation timeline updated by end of day. I'll have it to you by 4. Good. A man in a rumpled suit stopped by their table, smiling broadly. Excuse me, I hope I'm not interrupting. I just wanted to say you two make a lovely couple. My wife and I have been married 32 years, and I can always spot that look. Lucas felt his face flush hot. Oh, we're colleagues, Claire cut in, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Just colleagues. The man's smile faltered. My apologies, I didn't mean to assume. He retreated quickly, clearly embarrassed. The silence that followed was excruciating. Lucas stared at his coffee cup. Claire returned to her phone with renewed intensity. We should go, she said finally. The cab's probably waiting. The ride to the airport was tense. Lucas watched the city slide by. Chicago in the wake of the storm. Wet streets reflecting gray sky, people hurrying to work with their heads down against the cold. Claire sat on the opposite side of the back seat, as far from him as the confined space would allow, her attention fixed on her phone screen. At the airport, they moved through security with the practiced efficiency of frequent travelers. Their gate was at opposite ends of the terminal from where they'd been stranded last night. In the harsh morning light, surrounded by business travelers and families, the intimacy of their late-night conversation felt like something from a dream or a mistake. I'm going to work until boarding, Claire said, settling into a seat near the gate. You should probably call your daughter. It was a dismissal, polite but clear. Lucas nodded and moved several rows away, giving her the space she clearly wanted. He tried to focus on work emails, but his mind kept circling back to the hotel room, to Claire's confession that she didn't know what made her happy anymore, to the way she'd looked at him when he talked about Emma, like she was seeing something she'd forgotten existed. The flight was called. They boarded separately, though their seats were together in first class. Claire took the window seat and immediately put in earbuds, closing her eyes. Lucas pulled out his tablet and tried to work on the implementation timeline, but he kept losing his train of thought, distracted by Claire's presence beside him. Halfway through the flight, turbulence hit. Not dangerous, but enough to make the plane buck and shudder. Lucas saw Claire's hand tighten on the armrest, her knuckles white. Without thinking, he reached over and covered her hand with his. Her eyes opened, meeting his. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then slowly, she turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. They stayed like that as the plane steadied, hands clasped, neither acknowledging it, neither pulling away. When the turbulence passed, Claire gently extracted her hand and closed her eyes again. But Lucas could see the faint color in her cheeks, the way her breathing had changed. They landed in Milwaukee just after 11. Lucas's mother was picking him up. Claire had a car service. They walked together toward baggage claim, the crowd of travelers flowing around them. Lucas! Claire stopped, turning to face him. People streamed past them, pulling luggage, talking on phones, living their separate lives. Last night was nice, he finished. Getting to know you better, as a person, not just a boss. Yes, it was. She paused, seeming to struggle with something. I don't want things to be weird between us. You're too valuable to the team. They won't be weird. We're professionals. Right, professionals. She adjusted her bag on her shoulder, a nervous gesture he'd never seen from her before. I'll see you at the office tomorrow morning, staff meeting at 8. I'll be there. She started to walk away, then stopped. When she turned back, her expression was carefully neutral, but something flickered in her eyes, uncertainty, maybe, or regret. Your daughter asked if I like butterflies, Lucas said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. Emma. She wanted to know. Claire's expression softened fractionally. And what did you tell her? That I didn't know, that I'd never asked you. Well, a ghost of a smile touched her lips. I do. I went through a lepidopterist phase in college. Monarchs are my favorite. The migration, it's remarkable. Thousands of miles across generations, each butterfly knowing exactly where to go, even though they've never been there before. Emma would love that. She could talk about butterflies for hours. She sounds wonderful. She is. They stood there, the crowd partying around them, an island of stillness in the chaos of the airport. Lucas wanted to say more, to ask if, maybe, sometime, she'd like to meet Emma properly, not as his boss, but as someone he trusted, someone who might become important to both of them. But Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and the moment broke. I have to take this. Safe travels, Lucas. You too. He watched her walk away, phone pressed to her ear, her posture straightening back into the commanding presence everyone recognized. By the time she disappeared into the crowd, she was fully Claire Holloway again, untouchable, unshakable, alone. Lucas collected his bag and headed to the pickup area where his mother's familiar silver sedan waited. She hugged him tight when he got in, the kind of mother's hug that could still make him feel like everything might be okay. Rough trip? She asked, pulling into traffic. Complicated. Want to talk about it? He thought about Claire's hand in his during the turbulence, about waking up with her warmth against him, about the way she'd admitted she didn't know how to be happy. He thought about all of it, and knew none of it was something he could explain, not to his mother, maybe not even to himself. Not yet, he said. How's Emma? His mother accepted the deflection gracefully. Excited to see you. She made you a picture. 3 guesses what it's of. Butterflies? Very good. You know your daughter. When they arrived home, Emma burst through the front door before Lucas could even get out of the car. She launched herself at him with the fearless abandon only a 6-year-old could manage, wrapping her arms around his neck and her legs around his waist. You came back. You promised, and you came back. Of course I did, Butterfly. I always keep my promises to you. She pulled back to look at him seriously. Was Ms. Claire scared of the storm? Lucas thought about Claire's carefully controlled fear during the turbulence, the way she'd reached back for his hand despite all her determination to maintain distance. Maybe a little, but she was brave. That's good. Grandma says being brave means being scared, but doing it anyway. Grandma's very smart. Emma wriggled down and grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the house. Come see my butterfly picture. I used all the colors. The rest of the day passed in the familiar rhythm of single parenthood, lunch made and cleaned up, Emma's endless chatter about school and friends and the injustice of bedtime, the comfortable routine that grounded him. He helped her with homework, read her favorite book about butterfly migration, tucked her into bed with the ritual of checking that all her stuffed animals were present and accounted for. Daddy? Emma's voice was sleepy, her eyes already heavy. Do you think Ms. Claire is lonely? The question caught him off guard. What makes you ask that? When you talk about her, you sound sad. Like when you talk about Mommy sometimes. Lucas felt his throat tighten. Emma was so perceptive, saw things adults worked hard to hide. I think maybe she's lonely sometimes. A lot of grown-ups are. You should be her friend. Friends make lonely go away. It's a little more complicated than that, baby. Why? Friends aren't complicated. You just like somebody and they like you back and you do nice things for each other. If only it were that simple, Lucas thought. If only there weren't power dynamics and professional boundaries and the weight of past losses making every new connection feel dangerous. You're right, he said, kissing her forehead. Friends aren't complicated. Sleep tight, butterfly. Love you, Daddy? Love you more. After Emma was asleep, Lucas sat at his kitchen table with his laptop, finishing the implementation timeline Claire had requested. He worked methodically, professionally, incorporating her feedback from the presentation and anticipating the questions the Harrington team would ask. This was safe territory, deliverables and deadlines, clear expectations, and measurable outcomes. His phone buzzed with an email notification. From Claire, sent at 10:47 p.m. Lucas, reviewed the timeline. Excellent work as always. One thought, we should include a contingency phase for data migration complications. Harrington's existing systems are older than they admitted. I'd rather overpromise capability than underdeliver results. Can you add that section and have the revised version to me by noon tomorrow? CH. He read it twice, looking for subtext, for any acknowledgement of everything that had happened between them. But it was pure business, the kind of directive she'd sent him 100 times before. Maybe that's all last night had been. A momentary lapse in professional distance, already forgotten in the clear light of separate lives. Lucas added the contingency section, refined the language, and sent it back with a brief acknowledgement. Professional. Appropriate. Exactly what they both needed. But as he closed his laptop and headed to bed, he couldn't stop thinking about what Emma had said. Friends aren't complicated. You just like somebody, and they like you back. What did it mean that he couldn't stop thinking about Claire? That he'd memorized the exact shade of her eyes when the lamplight hit them, the way she'd looked with her hair loose and her defenses down? What did it mean that he wanted to know more? What books she read? What music she listened to? Whether she'd ever watched a monarch butterfly emerge from its chrysalis and felt the same wonder Emma felt? He wanted to be her friend, but he also wanted things that friendship couldn't encompass, things that terrified him because he hadn't wanted them since Sarah died, hadn't let himself want them, because wanting meant risk, and risk meant potential loss, and he'd already lost enough for one lifetime. Sleep didn't come easily that night. The next morning, Lucas arrived at Meridian Technologies at 7:30, an hour before the staff meeting. The office was quiet, just a few early arrivals scattered among the cubicles. He made coffee in the break room and settled at his desk, determined to focus on work and nothing else. Claire arrived at 7:45. He heard her heels clicking on the tile floor, heard her greeting the receptionist with her usual brisk efficiency. He didn't look up from his computer screen, didn't acknowledge her presence passing his cubicle. Professional distance. That's what they both needed. The staff meeting was routine, project updates, resource allocation, a new client prospect that would require extensive travel. Claire ran it with her usual commanding presence, fielding questions and making decisions with quick precision. Lucas contributed when asked, kept his comments relevant and concise, gave no indication that anything had changed. Except everything had changed, and he could see in the way Claire's eyes skipped over him, the way she directed questions to everyone else on the team first, that she felt it too. After the meeting, as people filed out, Claire's voice stopped him. "Lucas, a moment, please." His heart kicked. He turned back, waiting as the room emptied. Claire closed the door, then moved to the window, putting the conference table between them. "I've been thinking about team structure," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "The Harrington project is going to require significant oversight. I'm considering making you the lead PM, reporting directly to me." It was the promotion he'd been working toward for 3 years, the opportunity he'd dreamed about, the raise that would make Emma's future more secure, the professional validation he'd earned through countless late nights and flawless executions. That's incredible. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. It's going to be brutal. Harrington's expectations are high, the timeline's aggressive, and you'll be managing a team of 8 across 3 departments. You'll be working closely with me, probably more than you'd like. There was something in her voice, a question hidden in the statement. Lucas met her eyes directly. "I think I can handle it." "Can you? Handle working closely with me after—" She stopped, seeming to catch herself. "I need to know this won't be a problem, that we can maintain appropriate professional boundaries despite whatever happened in Chicago." "Nothing happened in Chicago." "Lucas, we talked. We shared a room out of necessity. We both fell asleep and unconsciously sought human comfort. That's all." He said it firmly, as much to convince himself as her. "We're both adults. We can absolutely maintain professional boundaries." Claire studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded, some tension releasing from her shoulders. "Good. That's good. I'll submit the paperwork to HR this afternoon. You'll start officially next Monday, but I'd like you to begin transition meetings this week." "Of course." She moved toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. "For what it's worth, you earned this. Not because of Chicago, but despite it. You're the best PM on my team, and Harrington needs the best." "Thank you, Claire." Her name hung in the air between them, too familiar, too intimate for this glass-walled conference room. She noticed it too, her expression flickering. "Miss Holloway," she corrected softly. "At the office, it should be Miss Holloway." "Right, of course." She left, and Lucas stood alone in the conference room, staring at the space where she'd been. He should feel elated. The promotion was everything he'd worked for. But all he felt was the growing distance between them, the careful reconstruction of walls that had briefly come down. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Emma wants to know if you can pick her up from school today. Her class is releasing butterflies they raised from caterpillars. She wants you to see." Lucas smiled despite everything, typing back quickly. "I'll be there." Wouldn't miss it. At 3 o'clock, he stood in Emma's schoolyard with a crowd of other parents, watching as her teacher brought out a mesh enclosure filled with monarch butterflies. Emma spotted him immediately, her face lighting up. "Daddy, you came!" "Told you I would." The teacher explained the life cycle, the migration patterns, the remarkable journey these butterflies would undertake. Then, one by one, the children opened the enclosure and let the butterflies go. Emma's emerged slowly, clinging to her finger, its wings still damp and crumpled. "Come on," she whispered to it. "You can do it. You're so brave." Lucas watched his daughter's face. The wonder, the patience, the absolute faith that this fragile creature would find its way. And when the butterfly finally spread its wings and lifted into the air, joining its companions in a swirl of orange and black against the blue sky, Emma's joy was so pure it made his chest ache. "They know where they're going," Emma said, shading her eyes to watch them climb higher. "Even though they've never been there. They just know." Lucas thought about Claire saying the exact same thing, about monarchs knowing their path across generations. He thought about how strange it was that his daughter and his boss, 2 people who'd never met, both found meaning in the same migration. "Ms. Claire likes butterflies too," he said without planning to. Emma turned to him, eyes wide. "Really?" "Really. Monarchs are her favorite." "Can she come see my butterfly garden? I have milkweed and everything." The innocence of the question gutted him. Because yes, he wanted Claire to meet Emma properly, to see his daughter's garden and hear her endless butterfly facts. He wanted to show Claire what his life actually looked like. Not the professional version she saw at the office, but the messy, beautiful reality of single parenthood and small wonders. But he couldn't. They'd agreed on professional boundaries, and those boundaries didn't include bringing his boss home to meet his daughter over butterfly gardens. Maybe someday, he said, the vague promise that parents use when they mean probably never. Emma accepted it with the easy trust of childhood. But as Lucas drove them home, listening to her chatter about metamorphosis and migration, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was making a mistake, that professional boundaries were just another word for walls, and walls, no matter how necessary, always kept something important out. That evening, after Emma was asleep, Lucas found himself staring at his laptop screen, the cursor blinking in an empty email addressed to Claire. He'd typed and deleted 3 different messages, each one sounding either too personal or too distant. Finally, he closed the laptop without sending anything. Some conversations couldn't happen over email. The Harrington project consumed the following week. Lucas moved into his new role with the same methodical efficiency he brought to everything, coordinating between departments, managing timelines, anticipating problems before they materialized. He was good at this work, had always been good at it, but now there was an added pressure that had nothing to do with professional competence. Every meeting with Claire felt like walking a tightrope. They maintained perfect professional courtesy, their interactions crisp and businesslike. But underneath the surface, Lucas felt the constant hum of unspoken things, the memory of her warmth against his back, the vulnerability in her voice when she'd admitted she didn't know how to be happy, the way her hand had fit perfectly in his during the turbulence. He saw the same awareness in her eyes when she thought he wasn't looking, in the careful way she maintained physical distance, and how she never quite smiled at him the way she had that night in Chicago. On Thursday afternoon, Claire called him into her office. It was a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, decorated with the kind of minimalist precision that matched her personality. Everything in its place, nothing unnecessary, nothing personal, except a single photograph on her desk that Lucas had never been close enough to see clearly. "Close the door," she said, not looking up from her computer. Lucas did, his pulse quickening despite himself. Claire's closed-door meetings were legendary. They usually meant either major opportunities or serious problems, nothing in between. "Harrington wants to accelerate the timeline," she said, pulling up a project plan on her secondary monitor. "They're concerned about their Q4 numbers and think a faster implementation will boost investor confidence." Lucas moved closer to review the timeline, standing beside her desk. He could smell her perfume, that same subtle scent from the hotel room. He forced himself to focus on the screen. "That's aggressive. We'd be cutting 3 months out of a 9-month project." "I know. Can it be done?" He studied the plan, his mind already working through resource allocation and risk mitigation. "Maybe. We'd need to run parallel work streams instead of sequential, which increases coordination complexity, and we'd need sign-off on budget increases for additional contractors." "How much?" "Ballpark? Another 200,000? Claire didn't flinch. "Write up the proposal. I'll present it to the board tomorrow." She paused, finally looking up at him. "This is going to mean longer hours, Lucas. Nights, probably weekends. Can you manage that with Emma?" The question was professional, but there was something else in her tone, genuine concern, maybe even guilt that she was about to make his already complicated life more difficult. "My mother's flexible. We'll make it work." "You always say that." "We'll make it work. Like it's easy." "It's not easy, but it's necessary. Emma understands that my job is important. She's 6. She shouldn't have to understand that." Lucas felt a flash of defensiveness. "What's the alternative? Turn down the promotion? Stop taking on challenging projects? She needs me to succeed, Claire. That's how I provide for her future." "She needs you present, not just successful." The words hit harder than they should have, probably because they echoed his own fears. How many school events had he missed? How many bedtimes had he rushed through because of conference calls with overseas clients? He was doing his best, but his best always felt like it came up short somewhere. "I appreciate your concern," he said, his voice tighter than intended. "But I know what my daughter needs." Claire held his gaze for a long moment, something working behind her eyes. Then she looked away, back to her screen. Of course. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. Your parenting isn't my business. The apology should have settled things, but instead it created a strange, hollow feeling in Lucas's chest, because part of him wanted it to be her business. Part of him wanted her invested in Emma's well-being, wanted her opinion to matter, wanted to bridge the gap between his professional life and his personal one. But that was dangerous thinking. I'll have the proposal to you by end of day, he said. Thank you. That's all I needed. It was a dismissal. Lucas moved towards the door, then stopped, his hand on the handle. Against his better judgment, he turned back. Claire? She looked up, wariness in her expression. For what it's worth, I think you were right. That night in Chicago, about needing to figure out what makes you happy. Her expression softened fractionally. And have you? Figured out what makes you happy? Lucas thought about Emma's face when the butterfly had taken flight, about the quiet comfort of bedtime stories and weekend pancakes, about the moments when grief eased enough to let joy back in. But he also thought about Claire's laugh in the darkness of the hotel room, about conversations that made him feel less alone, about wanting things he'd convinced himself he didn't deserve to want. I'm working on it, he said finally. Something flickered across her face, understanding maybe, or recognition of their shared struggle. Me too. The moment stretched between them, waited with all the things they weren't saying. Then Claire's phone rang, shattering it. She reached for it automatically, and Lucas took the opportunity to leave, closing the door quietly behind him. He spent the rest of the afternoon on the proposal, diving deep into spreadsheets and resource models, grateful for work that required his full attention. But his mind kept drifting back to Claire's question. Have you figured out what makes you happy? He picked Emma up from his mother's house at 6, listening to her excited recap of her day as they drove home. She'd learned about metamorphosis in science class, had started a drawing of the butterfly life cycle, wanted to check her milkweed plants as soon as they got home to see if any monarch eggs had appeared. Can we have butterflies for dinner? She asked as Lucas unlocked the front door. I don't think butterflies would taste very good, baby. She giggled, the sound like bells. Not real butterflies, silly. Pasta butterflies. The ones that are shaped like bow ties. Ah, farfalle. Sure, we can do that. They cooked together, Emma standing on her step stool to help stir the sauce, chattering nonstop about her friends and her teacher and whether caterpillars felt weird when they were in their chrysalis, turning into goo before reforming as butterflies. Lucas half listened, responding at appropriate intervals, his mind still partly at the office, still replaying his conversation with Claire. Daddy, you're not listening, Emma said, her voice taking on that note of wounded dignity that 6-year-olds perfected. I'm sorry, Butterfly. You're right. Tell me again. She crossed her arms, studying him with those serious eyes that were so much like Sarah's. Are you sad? The question caught him off guard. No, baby, I'm not sad. You look sad, like you're thinking about something that hurts. Lucas knelt down to her level, brushing a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings that aren't exactly sad or happy. They're just big. What kind of big feelings? How could he explain this to a 6-year-old? That he was terrified of letting someone new into their carefully balanced life. That he was drawn to a woman he could never have, not without risking everything he'd built? That he sometimes felt like he was doing everything wrong, even when he was doing everything right? The kind that take a while to figure out, he said finally. But you don't need to worry about them. That's my job. Your job is to be 6 and wonderful, which you're very good at. She seemed to accept this, wrapping her arms around his neck and squeezing tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Butterfly. More than all the monarchs in Mexico. They ate dinner, did the dishes together, spent an hour on homework and reading. The familiar routine soothed something in Lucas, reminded him what actually mattered. This was his life, these small, precious moments with his daughter. The rest was just noise. But later, after Emma was asleep and the house was quiet, Lucas found himself on the back porch with a beer, staring at the small garden Emma had planted. She'd chosen specific flowers for their nectar, had carefully positioned milkweed plants to attract laying monarchs, had created a whole ecosystem based on the needs of creatures most people barely noticed. His phone buzzed. An email from Claire, sent at 10:23 p.m. Lucas. Board approved the accelerated timeline and budget. Harrington is thrilled. This is largely your win. Well done. We'll need to kick off the expanded team on Monday. Can you come in early, say 6:30 a.m., to finalize the rollout plan? I'll bring coffee. C.H. Lucas read it twice, looking for anything personal, any acknowledgement of their earlier conversation. But it was pure business, as it should be. He typed back, I'll be there. Thanks for fighting for the budget. Her response came almost immediately, as if she'd been waiting for his reply. I don't fight for budgets. I fight for good work. You do good work. See you Monday. It was a small thing, that distinction, but it mattered. She wasn't just approving numbers on a spreadsheet. She was investing in his abilities, trusting his judgment. It felt like respect, maybe even pride. It felt like something that could matter if he let it. Lucas finished his beer and went inside, determined to stop overthinking. Monday would be Monday. The project would be the project. And whatever complicated feelings he was having about Claire Holloway would eventually fade, replaced by the comfortable distance of professional respect. But as he lay in bed that night, he couldn't stop thinking about monarchs flying thousands of miles to a place they'd never been, guided by instinct they didn't understand, trusting in a journey that made no logical sense but felt absolutely right. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of Wisconsin autumn day that promised winter wasn't far behind. Lucas arrived at the office at 6:20, finding the parking lot nearly empty except for Claire's black sedan and a few cars belonging to the night cleaning crew. The building was eerily quiet, just the hum of HVAC systems and the distant whir of a floor buffer. Lucas took the elevator to the 4th floor, his footsteps echoing on the tile as he walked toward Claire's office. She was already there, bent over a stack of documents, her reading glasses perched on her nose. 2 large coffees from the good cafe downtown sat on her desk, still steaming. You're early, she said without looking up. So are you. Though I guess this is your office, so you're allowed. The corner of her mouth twitched. I made VP by being the first one in and the last one out. Old habits. Lucas took one of the coffees. She'd remembered he took it with just a splash of cream and settled into the chair across from her desk. In the soft morning light, Claire looked tired, the shadows under her eyes suggesting she'd slept as poorly as he had. Late night? He asked. Couldn't sleep, kept running scenarios for the Harrington rollout. She finally looked up, removing her glasses. You? Emma had a nightmare. Took a while to settle her back down. Something shifted in Claire's expression, a softness that briefly replaced her professional mask. Is she okay? She's fine. Just worried about whether the butterflies she released would make it to Mexico. They will. Monarchs are remarkably resilient. Claire paused, then added quietly, Your daughter sounds special, Lucas. The way you talk about her, it's clear she's everything to you. She is. She's the reason I get up in the morning, the reason I work this hard. Everything I do is for her. That's beautiful. And also a lot of pressure to put on yourself. It's not pressure. It's purpose. Claire studied him over her coffee cup, her expression thoughtful. What about you? When was the last time you did something just for yourself? Not for Emma, not for work, just because it made you happy. The question echoed their conversation in Chicago, bringing with it a rush of memory, the hotel room, the storm, the feeling of her warmth against him in the early morning. Lucas pushed it away. I don't really think in those terms anymore. Maybe you should. Is this your way of telling me I need to take more vacation time? No, it's my way of saying that martyrdom isn't sustainable. Eventually you burn out and then you're no good to anyone. She set down her coffee, her eyes serious. I've seen it happen, Lucas. Good people, dedicated people, running themselves into the ground because they thought sacrifice was the same as love. Speaking from experience? Maybe. She turned to her computer, pulling up the Harrington files, and Lucas recognized the deflection. But before she could fully retreat into work mode, he pressed gently. The photo on your desk? I've never asked about it. Claire's hand stilled on her mouse. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she reached for the frame, turning it so he could see. The photo showed a much younger Claire, maybe college age, standing with 2 other women who shared her features. They were on a beach somewhere, arms around each other, laughing at something outside the frame. Claire's hair was longer, her smile unguarded, her whole body language loose and happy in a way Lucas had never seen from her. "My sisters," she said quietly. "This was about 15 years ago, before I got the job at Meridian, before I became someone they didn't quite recognize anymore." "You look happy." "I was. We'd rented a house on the Cape for a week, just the three of us. We stayed up late talking, cooked elaborate meals, spent hours on the beach doing nothing." Her voice carried a wistfulness that made Lucas's chest ache. "That was the last time we were really close. After that I got too busy, too important, too focused on the next promotion, the next achievement." "It's not too late to reconnect, isn't it? They have their lives, I have mine. We don't even speak the same language anymore. When I visit, they talk about their kids' soccer games and school fundraisers, and I talk about quarterly earnings and market positioning. We're polite strangers who happen to share DNA." Lucas thought about his own mother, about how she'd rearranged her entire life to help him raise Emma, about the sacrifice that had looked like love because it was love. Family's complicated, but that doesn't mean it's not worth fighting for. Is it fighting for something or fighting against who you've become? Claire returned the photo to its place, precisely aligned with the edge of her desk. "Sometimes I think I've gone too far down this path to turn back. The work, the success, the reputation, it's who I am now. I don't know how to be that girl on the beach anymore." "Maybe you don't have to be her again. Maybe you just have to remember that she's still in there somewhere." Claire looked at him then, really looked at him, and Lucas saw something raw in her expression. Longing, maybe, or grief for roads not taken. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just a guy trying to figure things out, same as everyone else." "You're more than that." She said it quietly, almost reluctantly, as if the admission cost her something. "You're one of the most genuinely good people I know, Lucas, and I don't say that lightly." The compliment hit him in the center of his chest, warming him from the inside out. He wanted to reach across the desk, to take her hand the way he had on the plane, to close the distance between them, and acknowledge what they both felt but couldn't say. Instead, he said, "We should probably start on that rollout plan." "Right, yes." Claire straightened in her chair, pulling her professional armor back into place. The rollout plan. They worked for the next 2 hours, building out timelines and resource allocations, identifying potential risks and mitigation strategies. It was comfortable, this kind of collaboration, their minds working in sync, each anticipating what the other needed. They'd always worked well together, but now there was an added dimension, an understanding that went beyond professional respect. Other employees began arriving around 8, the building filled with voices and footsteps, the Monday morning rush of people settling into their week. Claire's phone started ringing, pulling her into a series of meetings. Lucas returned to his desk with the rollout plan, ready to present it to the expanded team. The week that followed was brutal. The accelerated timeline demanded constant attention, quick decisions, flawless coordination. Lucas found himself arriving earlier and staying later, eating lunch at his desk, taking conference calls during his commute. He saw Emma for an hour each evening if he was lucky, enough time to help with homework and hear about her day before she had to go to bed. His mother never complained, but Lucas could see the concern in her eyes when he picked Emma up at 8:30 for the third night in a row. His daughter already in pajamas, barely awake enough to brush her teeth before collapsing into bed. "This pace isn't sustainable," his mother said Friday evening, keeping her voice low so Emma wouldn't hear from the bathroom. "You're running yourself ragged. It's temporary. Once we get through the initial implementation phase, things will ease up." Will they? Or will there just be another crisis, another project, another reason why work has to come first? Lucas felt frustration rise in his throat. "I don't have a choice, Mom. This is my job. This is how I provide for Emma. Emma doesn't need more money in her college fund. She needs her father present and healthy, not burning himself out trying to prove something." "I'm not trying to prove anything." His mother gave him a look that said she knew better. "Aren't you? You've been running since Sarah died, Lucas. Running from grief, from fear, from the possibility that you might want something for yourself again. And work is a convenient excuse to keep running." The words stung because they were true. Lucas had thrown himself into his career after Sarah's death, using long hours and demanding projects as a shield against the emptiness. It had worked, mostly. It had kept him functional, kept him moving forward, but maybe it had also kept him from actually healing. "I don't know how to do this differently," he admitted quietly. "Start by being honest with yourself about what you actually want. Not what you think you should want. Not what's practical or safe. What you actually want." That night, after Emma was asleep, Lucas sat at his kitchen table and let himself think about that question. Really think about it, without the deflections and rationalizations he usually employed. He wanted Emma to be happy and healthy and secure. That was non-negotiable. But beneath that, what did he want for himself? He wanted to feel alive again instead of just functional. He wanted conversations that challenged him, that made him think about things beyond project timelines and resource allocation. He wanted someone to share the small moments with, Emma's butterfly garden, the triumph of mastering a new recipe, the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. He wanted Claire. The admission should have terrified him. Instead, it brought a strange sense of relief, like setting down a weight he'd been carrying for so long he'd forgotten it was there. But wanting and having were different things. Claire was his boss. Getting involved with her would be complicated, potentially career-ending if it went wrong. And more than that, bringing someone new into his and Emma's life felt like a betrayal of Sarah's memory, like saying the family they'd built together wasn't enough. His phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Still at the office. Found a potential issue with the Harrington data migration. Can you review the attached file?" Lucas opened the attachment, scanning through the technical specifications. She was right. There was a conflict in the database schemas that could cause problems down the line. He grabbed his laptop and started working through solutions, losing himself in the familiar comfort of problem solving. An hour later, he had 3 potential fixes outlined. He called Claire's direct line. She answered on the first ring. "Tell me you found something." 3 options, actually. The cleanest is to build a middleware layer that handles the translation, but it'll add 2 weeks to the timeline. "What are the other 2? They discussed the technical details for 20 minutes, weighing pros and cons, testing scenarios. It was the kind of conversation Lucas loved. 2 sharp minds working together toward a solution, trust and respect flowing both directions. "You should go home," Claire said finally. "It's almost midnight. Emma's probably been asleep for hours." "So should you. When's the last time you left the office before 10? "I don't remember. Tuesday, maybe?" "Claire, that's not healthy." "Neither is what you're doing. We're both workaholics, Lucas. At least I don't have a 6-year-old waiting at home." The comment wasn't meant to sting, but it did. Because she was right. He had responsibilities beyond work, people who needed him present and engaged. But the ease of losing himself in work, of having clear objectives and measurable outcomes, was so much simpler than navigating the messy complexity of real life. "Come to the company picnic tomorrow," Claire said suddenly. Lucas was thrown by the non sequitur. "What?" "The annual company picnic. It's tomorrow afternoon at Riverside Park. You should bring Emma. There are activities for kids, face painting, games, that sort of thing." "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Why not? You're part of the company. Emma should see where you work, meet some of your colleagues. It might help her understand why you're gone so much. Or it might make her resent my work even more," Lucas thought. But there was something in Claire's tone, an almost pleading quality, that made him reconsider. "Will you be there?" he asked. A pause. Then quietly, "Yes. I always make an appearance. It's expected. Okay? We'll come." "Good. That's good. I'll see you there." She hesitated, then added, "Good night, Lucas." "Good night, Claire." After he hung up, Lucas sat in the quiet kitchen, wondering what he'd just agreed to. The company picnic was supposed to be casual, family-friendly, a chance for employees to relax outside the office environment. But bringing Emma into his professional world, introducing her to Claire in that context, it felt significant in a way he couldn't quite articulate. He thought about his mother's question, "What do you actually want?" Maybe he was about to find out. Saturday morning dawned bright and unseasonably warm, the kind of perfect autumn day that felt like a gift. Emma was awake before Lucas, bouncing on his bed with the boundless energy only children possessed. "Is today the park day? With your work people?" She was already dressed, wearing her favorite butterfly print dress and mismatched socks. Yes, but it doesn't start until noon. We have time for breakfast. Can I get my face painted? The invitation said they'd have face painting, so probably. I want a butterfly, a big one, with orange and black wings like a monarch. Lucas smiled, pulling her into a hug. I think that can be arranged. They spent the morning doing normal weekend things, pancakes that Emma helped flip, a quick trip to the grocery store, watering her butterfly garden. Lucas tried not to think about the picnic, about what it would mean to have his two worlds collide. But nervous energy hummed beneath his skin, making him check his watch every 10 minutes. His mother noticed, of course. She'd stopped by to drop off Emma's library books and found Lucas changing his shirt for the third time. It's a company picnic, not a wedding, she said from his bedroom doorway, amusement in her voice. I just want to look presentable. Mm-hmm. And does this sudden concern about appearance have anything to do with a certain VP who will be there? Lucas froze, a clean polo shirt halfway over his head. I don't know what you're talking about. Lucas Benjamin Reed, I changed your diapers. You can't lie to me. She crossed her arms, her expression knowing. You've mentioned Claire's name more in the past 2 weeks than you've mentioned any woman's name since Sarah died. And you get this look when you talk about her, like you're not sure whether to smile or panic. He finished pulling on the shirt, avoiding her eyes. She's my boss, Mom. It's complicated. Life is complicated. That doesn't mean you should hide from it. She moved closer, her voice gentler. Sarah wouldn't want you to be alone forever, sweetheart. She loved you too much for that. The familiar ache settled in Lucas's chest, grief mixed with guilt, love mixed with loss. I know, I just don't know how to do this. How to want someone new without feeling like I'm betraying what Sarah and I had. You're not betraying anything. You're just being human. His mother squeezed his shoulder. And from what you've told me, this Claire sounds like someone worth taking a chance on, someone who challenges you, who sees you for who you really are. What if it doesn't work out? What if I open myself up to this and it all falls apart? Then you'll hurt, and you'll heal, and you'll keep going. Same as you did before, same as everyone does. She studied his face with the piercing insight only mothers possessed. But what if it does work out? What if you let yourself be happy again? Lucas didn't have an answer for that. The possibility felt too big, too terrifying to examine directly. Emma appeared in the doorway, twirling to show off her dress. Are we ready? Can we go now? Lucas checked his watch. 11:30. Close enough. Yeah, Butterfly, let's go. Riverside Park was already crowded when they arrived, the parking lot filled with families unloading coolers and lawn chairs. Colorful banners marked the Meridian Technologies section, a sprawling area near the playground with picnic tables, a catering tent, and various activity stations. Emma's eyes went wide. Daddy, there's so many people. It's a big company, lots of families. Lucas took her hand, suddenly nervous about navigating this crowd, about finding Claire without seeming like he was looking for her. They made their way toward the registration table, where a cheerful HR representative handed them name tags and wristbands. Emma immediately spotted the face painting station and tugged on Lucas's hand. Can I please? Sure, let's go. The face painter was a young woman with purple hair and an impressive array of colors spread before her. Emma climbed into the chair and announced with complete confidence, I want a monarch butterfly, with orange wings and black edges and white spots just like the real ones. The painter grinned. A girl who knows her butterflies. I like it. This is going to take a few minutes. Dad, you can grab some food if you want. I'll take good care of her. Lucas hesitated, unwilling to leave Emma even in this safe, supervised environment. But his daughter was already chatting happily with the painter about metamorphosis and migration patterns, completely at ease. And standing awkwardly beside her while she got her face painted seemed like hovering. I'll be right over there, he said, pointing to a nearby picnic table. You can see me the whole time, okay? Emma nodded, already absorbed in watching the painter select brushes. Lucas moved toward the food tent, scanning the crowd without meaning to. He recognized colleagues from various departments. Some he worked with regularly, others he only knew from company emails. Several waved or called greetings. He waved back, keeping one eye on Emma at the face painting station. Lucas, good to see you outside the office. Dave Martinez, another project manager, appeared beside him with a plate piled high with burgers and potato salad. Is that your daughter getting her face painted? Yeah, that's Emma. She's adorable. My kids are around here somewhere, probably terrorizing the other children. Dave grinned. Fair warning, the three-legged race starts in 20 minutes, and they're recruiting participants. Hide if you value your dignity. Lucas laughed. Thanks for the heads up. He grabbed a plate and loaded it with food he wasn't particularly hungry for, his attention divided between Emma and the crowd. Where was Claire? Had she come yet? Was she avoiding the family-oriented activities, keeping to herself in some quiet corner? Looking for someone? The voice behind him made his heart jump. He turned to find Claire standing there, and for a moment he forgot how to form words. She wasn't dressed in her usual armor of tailored suits and heels. Instead, she wore jeans, actual jeans that looked soft and worn in, and a simple blue sweater that brought out the green in her eyes. Her hair was loose, falling in soft waves around her shoulders, and she wore minimal makeup. She looked younger, more relaxed, and somehow more herself than Lucas had ever seen her at the office. Hi, he managed. I didn't see you arrive. I've been here for a bit playing corporate diplomat, making rounds, shaking hands, pretending I enjoy small talk. She smiled, a real smile that made something flutter in his chest. Where's Emma? Lucas pointed toward the face painting station, getting transformed into a butterfly. Of course she is. Claire's expression softened. Can I meet her? The question was casual, but Lucas heard the weight behind it. This was a threshold they were crossing, moving from professional colleagues who'd shared an accidental intimacy to something more intentional, more personal. I'd like that, he said. They walked toward the face painting station together, close enough that their arms occasionally brushed. Emma was sitting perfectly still while the painter added final details to the elaborate butterfly design covering half her face, orange and black wings with intricate white spots, exactly like a monarch. All done, the painter announced. Check it out in the mirror. Emma gasped with delight when she saw her reflection. It's perfect. Daddy, look. I see. You look beautiful, butterfly. Emma hopped down from the chair, then noticed Claire standing beside Lucas. She went shy for a moment, tucking herself partially behind his leg. Emma, this is Ms. Holloway from my work, Lucas said gently. The one who likes butterflies, too. Claire knelt down to Emma's level with a grace that surprised Lucas, bringing herself to the child's height instead of looming over her. That's an amazing butterfly. It looks just like a real monarch. Emma peeked out from behind Lucas's leg, her natural friendliness beginning to overcome her initial shyness. Did you know monarchs can fly all the way to Mexico, even though they've never been there before? I did know that. It's one of the most amazing things in nature. Claire's voice was warm, genuine. I studied butterflies in college. Monarchs were always my favorite. Really? Emma emerged fully, her eyes wide. Do you know about the chrysalis? How they turn into goo and then reform into something completely different? Metamorphosis. Yes, it's incredible. The caterpillar basically dissolves and rebuilds itself from the inside out. That's what I want to study when I grow up. I want to help butterflies. Claire smiled and Lucas saw something shift in her expression, a tenderness he'd never witnessed before. That's a wonderful dream. The world needs more people who care about small, beautiful things. Emma studied Claire for a moment with that unnervingly direct gaze children possessed. Then she announced, You should paint a butterfly on your face too, then we'd match. Claire laughed, surprised. I don't know if that would be very professional. It's not work today. It's the park. Daddy's not working either. Emma looked up at Lucas for confirmation. Right, Daddy? Right. No work today. See? Emma took Claire's hand with the easy trust of childhood, tugging her toward the face painting station. Come on. You can get a small one if you don't want a big one like mine. Lucas watched, something warm and terrifying unfurling in his chest, as Claire allowed herself to be led by his 6-year-old daughter. She settled into the face painting chair and Emma bounced beside her, offering advice to the painter. Make it pretty but not too big. Ms. Claire is a grown-up, so it should be sophisticated. Maybe just on her cheek? With lots of orange, because that's the best color. The painter caught Lucas's eye, grinning at Emma's earnest direction. Claire submitted to the process with surprising patience, her eyes closed while the painter worked, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. When it was finished, a delicate monarch butterfly adorned Claire's cheek, small and tasteful but unmistakably present. Emma clapped her hands together. "It's perfect! Now we match!" Claire checked her reflection in the mirror, something complicated crossing her face. "We do indeed." Other Meridian employees passed by, doing double takes at the sight of their formidable VP with a butterfly painted on her face. Claire seemed aware of their reactions but unconcerned, her attention focused on Emma. "Are you hungry?" she asked the child. "They have hot dogs and hamburgers, plus apparently some very good cookies." Emma looked at Lucas for permission. He nodded, and she took Claire's hand again, chattering about her butterfly garden and the milkweed plants and whether Claire had ever seen a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis in person. They got food and settled at a picnic table slightly removed from the main crowd. Emma sat between them, dividing her attention equally, asking Claire questions about her work and whether she had any pets and what her favorite book was when she was 6. Lucas watched them interact, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. Claire was patient with Emma's endless questions, answering thoughtfully, asking follow-up questions that showed genuine interest. She treated Emma like a person, not like a child to be talked down to, and Emma bloomed under the attention. "Miss Claire, do you have kids?" Emma asked around a mouthful of hot dog. The question landed like a stone in still water. Claire's expression flickered, pain, quickly masked. "No, I don't." "Why not? You're really nice. You'd be a good mom." "Emma," Lucas said gently, "that's a personal question." "It's okay." Claire met his eyes briefly, then turned back to Emma. "I've been very focused on my work. Sometimes adults make choices about what's most important to them, and I chose my career. But that doesn't mean I don't like kids. I think you're wonderful." Emma considered this with that serious expression she got when processing complex ideas. "Daddy says you work really hard, like all the time." "I do work a lot, maybe too much." "That's what Grandma says about Daddy. She says he needs to remember there's more to life than spreadsheets." Emma paused. "What's a spreadsheet?" Lucas nearly choked on his water. Claire laughed, a genuine, delighted sound that made several people at nearby tables turn and stare. "Your grandmother is a wise woman," Claire said, "and she's right. There is more to life than spreadsheets." "Like butterflies," Emma said confidently. "Exactly like butterflies." The afternoon unfolded with surprising ease. Emma dragged them both to various activities. The three-legged race, which Lucas and Emma won through sheer determination, and Emma's surprisingly strategic approach to teamwork. A scavenger hunt that had Claire crawling under picnic tables looking for hidden tokens. A water balloon toss that left all three of them slightly damp and laughing. Lucas kept expecting Claire to make excuses and leave, to retreat to the safety of corporate distance. But she stayed, seemingly content to spend the afternoon with them, her professional mask completely set aside. At one point, Emma ran off to play tag with some other children, and Lucas found himself alone with Claire on a bench near the playground. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Emma dart between trees, her butterfly face paint slightly smudged but still vibrant. "Thank you for this," Claire said quietly. "For what?" "For letting me be part of your day. For sharing Emma with me. I know it's not simple, given our work relationship." Lucas turned to look at her fully. In the afternoon sunlight, with the butterfly painted on her cheek and her guard completely down, she looked almost heartbreakingly vulnerable. "It's not simple," he agreed, "but it feels right." "Does it?" She met his eyes, and he saw hope there, mixed with fear. "Because I keep trying to convince myself this is just friendliness between colleagues, but I'm not sure I believe it anymore." Lucas's heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. The moment where they either acknowledged what was happening between them or retreated to safe, professional distance. He thought about his mother's words, about Sarah's memory, about all the reasons this was complicated. Then he thought about how Claire had knelt to talk to Emma at her level, about the patient way she'd answered endless butterfly questions, about the joy in her laugh during the water balloon toss. He thought about waking up with her warmth against him in Chicago, about conversations that made him feel less alone, about wanting things he'd convinced himself he didn't deserve. "I don't believe it either," he said. The admission hung between them, weighted with possibility. Claire drew in a breath, her expression shifting through several emotions too quickly for him to track. "Lucas, I'm still your boss. That doesn't change just because we're at a picnic. The power dynamics, the professional complications. I know, believe me, I know. I've been trying to talk myself out of this for weeks. And I can't. Every time I convince myself it's impossible, I remember how you looked in that hotel room when you admitted you didn't know how to be happy. Or how you looked just now, playing tag with a bunch of 6-year-olds like it was the most important thing in the world. And I think maybe some things are worth the complication." Claire was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on Emma playing in the distance. "I'm moving divisions," she said finally. Lucas felt his stomach drop. "What?" "I've been offered a position as VP of Strategic Innovation. Different division, different reporting structure. It's been in the works for a few weeks, but I only got final confirmation yesterday." She turned to look at him. "I wasn't going to mention it yet, but given this conversation, you should know. If I accept, I wouldn't be your direct supervisor anymore." Hope bloomed in Lucas's chest, bright and terrifying. "Are you going to accept?" "I don't know. It's a lateral move, not a promotion. In some ways, it's a step back from the power I have now, but it would give me more autonomy, more control over projects, and it would remove the obstacle between us." "Is that why you're considering it?" "Partially, but also because you were right back in Chicago. I need to figure out what actually makes me happy instead of just climbing the next rung on the ladder." She looked down at her hands, the butterfly on her cheek catching the sunlight. "Meeting you, talking to you, spending time with Emma today, these things make me happy. They make me feel like a person instead of just a position." Lucas wanted to reach for her hand to close the distance between them, but they were still surrounded by colleagues and families. Still in a semi-professional context, even if the boundaries had blurred. "When will you decide?" he asked. "I have to give them an answer by Tuesday." She smiled, but there was uncertainty in it. No pressure, right? Before Lucas could respond, Emma came running up, breathless and glowing. "Daddy, Miss Claire, they're starting the big kickball game. We need grown-ups on our team." Claire stood, offering Emma her hand. "Well, we can't let your team down. Though I should warn you, I haven't played kickball in about 20 years. It's easy. You just kick the ball and run really fast." Sounds simple enough. They spent the next hour playing kickball with a chaotic mix of kids and adults, none of whom took it seriously enough to actually keep score. Lucas watched Claire run the bases with Emma, both of them laughing, the butterfly face paint on Claire's cheek now completely smudged but somehow making her look more beautiful, not less. He saw the glances from other employees, curiosity, surprise, speculation. Word would get around the office that Claire Holloway had spent the afternoon playing with Lucas Reed's daughter, that she'd gotten her face painted, that she'd seemed genuinely happy. There would be gossip, assumptions, potential complications. But watching Claire scoop Emma up when they scored a run, seeing his daughter's face light up with joy, feeling his own heart settle into a rhythm that felt like hope, it all seemed worth whatever complications might follow. As the afternoon wound down and families began packing up, Emma started to fade, her boundless energy finally depleted. She leaned against Lucas's side, her eyes heavy. "Tired, Butterfly?" he asked. "A little, but I had the best day." "I'm glad." Emma looked over at Claire, who was helping fold up a picnic blanket nearby. "Is Miss Claire coming home with us?" The innocent question made both adults freeze. Lucas felt his face heat up. "No, baby. Miss Claire has her own home to go to." Emma frowned, processing this. "But she's your friend now, right? Friends visit each other." "Yes, we're friends, but grown-up friendships are a little different than kid friendships." "That's silly. Friends should visit no matter how old they are." Emma yawned, settling more firmly against Lucas's side. "Maybe Ms. Claire could come see my butterfly garden sometime. It's really good. We have milkweed and everything." Claire approached, the folded blanket in her arms, her expression soft. "I would love to see your butterfly garden, Emma. Maybe your daddy can arrange it sometime." "Promise?" "I promise to try." That seemed to satisfy Emma. She let Lucas pick her up, something she usually claimed to be too big for, and rested her head on his shoulder, her butterfly face paint smearing slightly against his shirt. Lucas walked with Claire toward the parking lot, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. Other families streamed past them, children carrying balloons and leftover cookies, parents looking pleasantly exhausted. "Thank you for today," Lucas said when they reached Claire's car, "for being so good with Emma, for being real. Thank you for trusting me with her. She's extraordinary, Lucas. You should be proud." "I am, every single day." Claire unlocked her car but didn't get in. Instead, she stood there, keys in hand, seeming to wrestle with something. Finally, she said, "I'm going to accept the position, the move to strategic innovation." Lucas's heart kicked. "Because of us?" "Because of me. Because I want to see what it's like to make choices based on what I actually want instead of what looks best on my resume. Because you and Emma reminded me that there's more to life than the next promotion." She paused. "And yes, because of us. Because I want to see where this could go without professional ethics standing in the way." Emma stirred against Lucas's shoulder, making a small, sleepy sound. Claire reached out, gently smoothing down a piece of Emma's hair that had escaped her ponytail. "She's lucky to have you," Claire said softly. "I'm the lucky one." "You keep saying that, but I think you're both lucky to have each other." Claire's hand lingered for a moment, almost touching Lucas's arm, then pulled back. "I should go. You should get her home." "Claire?" She paused, one hand on her car door. "I'm glad you came today. I'm glad you're making this choice." She smiled and it transformed her face completely. "So am I, terrified, but glad." Lucas watched her drive away, Emma's weight warm and solid against him, the future suddenly full of possibilities he hadn't dared to imagine. The parking lot emptied around them, families heading home to their normal Saturday evenings. But nothing felt normal anymore. Everything felt like it was shifting, settling into a new configuration that was both scary and right. "Daddy?" Emma mumbled against his shoulder. "Yeah, Butterfly? I really like Miss Claire. She's nice, and she knows about butterflies." "She is nice, and she does know about butterflies." "Are you going to marry her?" Lucas nearly dropped his car keys. "What?" "Emma, no, we're friends. It's not like that." Emma lifted her head to look at him with those two perceptive eyes. "But you like her, I can tell. You get the same smile Mommy used to give you in the pictures." The observation hit Lucas square in the chest, out of the mouths of babes, as his own mother liked to say. He thought about how to answer, how to be honest without making promises he couldn't keep. "I do like her," he admitted, "but grown-up relationships are complicated, baby. We have to take our time and make sure we're doing the right thing." "Because of me?" "Partially. You're the most important person in my life, Emma. I would never do anything that might hurt you or make you unhappy." Emma considered this seriously, then said, "I don't think Miss Claire would make me unhappy. I think she'd make you smile more. And when you smile more, everybody's happier." Lucas hugged his daughter tight, overcome with love for this wise little person who saw the world with such clarity. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart. You just don't always listen." He laughed despite the emotion clogging his throat. "You're absolutely right. I should listen to you more often." They drove home through the golden late afternoon light, Emma falling asleep in her car seat, the butterfly on her face now more smudged than pattern, but still beautiful. Lucas's mind raced with everything that had happened, everything that was changing. Claire was moving divisions. The obstacle between them was being removed. The possibility he'd been afraid to acknowledge was becoming real, concrete, unavoidable. And for the first time since Sarah died, Lucas let himself imagine a future that included not just survival and responsibility, but actual happiness. A future where he could be both a devoted father and a man capable of loving again. A future where the carefully separated parts of his life, work and home, duty and desire, might finally integrate into something whole. His mother was waiting when they got home, one look at his face telling her everything she needed to know. She took Emma, still sleeping, from his arms and headed toward the stairs. "I'll put her to bed," she said. "You look like you need a minute to process." Lucas stood in his living room, the house quiet except for the distant sounds of his mother's gentle voice reading Emma a bedtime story. He thought about Claire's hand almost touching his arm in the parking lot, about her promise to visit Emma's butterfly garden, about the way she'd looked at him when she said she was making choices based on what she actually wanted. He thought about monarchs flying thousands of miles to a place they'd never been, guided by instinct and faith and something deeper than logic. He thought about Emma's butterfly garden, about creating the conditions for transformation and then trusting the process. Maybe that's what this was, creating the conditions for something new to emerge. Not betraying the past, but allowing space for the future. Not forgetting Sarah, but honoring her by choosing to keep living fully instead of just existing. His phone buzzed, a text from Claire. "Thank you for today. Emma is remarkable. You're remarkable. Sleep well." Lucas typed back. "Thank you for being there, for being yourself. Looking forward to Tuesday's announcement." Her response came quickly. "Me too." Terrified, but "Me too." "Good night, Lucas. Good night, Claire." He went upstairs to check on Emma. She was asleep in her bed, her face finally washed clean of butterfly paint, her stuffed animals arranged around her in their familiar constellation. His mother had left a nightlight on, casting soft shadows across the room. Lucas sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching her sleep, his heart so full it ached. This child, this perfect, perceptive, butterfly-loving child, had somehow known what he'd been too scared to acknowledge. That loving again wasn't betrayal. That opening himself to possibility wasn't weakness. That maybe, just maybe, their carefully built life had room for one more person. He kissed Emma's forehead and whispered the same words he'd said every night since Sarah died. "I love you, butterfly, more than all the monarchs in Mexico." Then he added something new. "And I think maybe, just maybe, we're going to be okay. More than okay. I think we're going to be happy." Emma stirred slightly, a small smile touching her lips, as if even in sleep she approved. Monday morning arrived with the crisp certainty of autumn transitioning toward winter. Lucas woke early, his mind already racing through the day ahead. Claire would be making her announcement about the division move tomorrow, but today they still existed in the limbo of professional boundaries and unspoken possibilities. Emma was unusually quiet over breakfast, pushing her cereal around her bowl with a thoughtful expression. "What's going on in that head of yours, butterfly?" Lucas asked. She looked up, her eyes serious. "Is Miss Claire going to be at your office today?" "Probably. Why?" "I just wanted to make sure she was okay. Sometimes grown-ups get sad when they have to make big decisions." Lucas marveled again at his daughter's perceptiveness. "How do you know Ms. Claire has a big decision to make?" Emma shrugged with the casual wisdom of childhood. "I could tell. She had that look people get when they're thinking really hard about something important, like when you were deciding whether to take the new job. You notice a lot, don't you?" "Grandma says I have good instincts about people." Emma took a bite of cereal, then added, "I think Ms. Claire is lonely. Not sad lonely, but like she's been by herself for so long she forgot what it's like to have people." The observation was so accurate it made Lucas's chest tight. "That's very insightful, baby. Will you tell her I hope she's okay, and that she should come see my butterfly garden soon like she promised?" "I'll tell her." At the office, the day unfolded with deceptive normalcy. Lucas attended meetings, reviewed project timelines, coordinated with his team. But underneath the routine, anticipation hummed through him like an electrical current. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, Claire would announce her move, and the obstacle between them would be removed. He saw her twice during the day, once in a department meeting where she was her usual commanding self, and once in the hallway where they passed with professional nods and carefully neutral expressions. But her eyes held his for a fraction of a second longer than necessary, and Lucas saw the same anticipation reflected there. That evening, after Emma was asleep, his mother found him on the back porch again, staring at Emma's butterfly garden in the gathering dusk. "You're doing that thing where you overthink everything," she said, settling into the chair beside him. "I'm not overthinking. I'm just thinking." "Lucas, I've known you for 34 years. I can tell the difference." She was quiet for a moment, then said gently, "Are you worried about tomorrow?" "Yes and no. I want Claire to make this move because it's right for her, not just because it clears the way for us. I don't want to be the reason she makes a career decision she might regret. Did she say that's why she's doing it? Lucas thought about Claire's words at the picnic. She said it's partially about us, but mostly about her needing to make choices based on what makes her happy instead of what looks best on her resume. Then trust her to know her own mind. She's a grown woman, Lucas. She can make her own decisions. I know, it's just... He struggled to articulate the fear that had been gnawing at him. What if I'm not worth it? What if she gives up this position of power and influence and then realizes I'm just a single dad with a modest salary and a complicated life? His mother turned to look at him fully, her expression fierce. Lucas Benjamin Reed, you listen to me. You are a wonderful father, a talented professional, and a genuinely good man. Any woman would be lucky to have you in her life. And if Claire can't see that, then she's not the person you think she is. But what about Emma? What if this doesn't work out and Emma gets hurt? She's already attached to Claire. Emma has good instincts, remember? She wouldn't have opened her heart to Claire if she didn't feel safe doing so. His mother reached over and squeezed his hand. You can't protect Emma from every possible hurt, sweetheart. All you can do is model what healthy love looks like. Taking chances, being honest, treating people with respect and kindness. Even if things don't work out with Claire, Emma will learn that it's okay to take risks on people who matter. Lucas sat with that wisdom, feeling some of the tension ease from his shoulders. His mother was right. He'd been so focused on protecting Emma from potential loss that he'd forgotten the value of showing her it was possible to love again after grief. When did you get so wise? He asked. About the same time you were born, and I realized I had no idea what I was doing. Parenting is just making it up as you go and hoping you don't mess them up too badly. Lucas laughed despite himself. That's reassuring. You're doing great, honey. Emma is happy, healthy, and loved. That's what matters. The rest is just details. That night, Lucas slept better than he had in weeks, his mind finally quiet. Tuesday morning dawned gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that matched the nervous energy thrumming through Lucas's veins. The all-staff meeting where Claire would make her announcement was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Lucas arrived at the office early, unable to focus on actual work, refreshing his email every few minutes, even though he knew nothing would change. At 9:45, employees began filtering into the main conference room. Lucas found a seat near the back, suddenly conscious of every glance in his direction, every whispered conversation that might be about him and Claire at the picnic. The gossip had been relatively subdued so far, but he knew it was circulating. Claire entered at exactly 10 o'clock, flanked by the CEO and the head of HR. She looked composed, professional, every inch the executive everyone expected. But Lucas caught the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her hands were clasped just a bit too tightly in front of her. The CEO spoke first, delivering some opening remarks about company growth and strategic realignment that Lucas barely heard. Then Claire stepped forward. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I have an announcement to make regarding my role at Meridian. Effective immediately, I'll be transitioning from my position as VP of Operations to VP of Strategic Innovation." A ripple of surprise moved through the room. Claire continued, "This is a lateral move, not a promotion, which I'm sure seems counterintuitive to some of you. But I've realized that my career path has been driven primarily by advancement rather than actual passion. Strategic innovation is a smaller division with more autonomy and more opportunity to work on projects I find genuinely meaningful. It's a choice based on what I want to build rather than what title I want to hold." Lucas felt his heart swell with pride. She was owning this decision, making it clear it was about her own growth and not about running away from anything. "The operations division will be in excellent hands during the transition," Claire continued, "and I'm excited to explore new directions. I hope you'll all support this move as I continue to contribute to Meridian's success in a different capacity." The CEO added some comments about Claire's contributions and the search for her replacement in operations. People asked questions about transition timelines and project handoffs. Through it all, Claire maintained her professional composure, answering clearly and confidently. Lucas noticed several people glancing between him and Claire, clearly doing math about what this move might mean for their relationship. But Claire never looked at him directly, never gave anyone ammunition for speculation. When the meeting ended, Lucas returned to his desk, his mind racing. The obstacle was gone. Claire was no longer his boss. They could move forward without ethical complications or professional conflicts of interest. So why did he feel terrified? His phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Can we talk?" "My new office, 2 p.m.?" Lucas typed back. "I'll be there." The hours until 2 o'clock crawled by with agonizing slowness. Lucas tried to focus on work, but his mind kept circling back to what Claire might say, what he wanted to say, how to navigate this new reality they'd created. At 1:50, he headed to the Strategic Innovation Division on the third floor. Claire's new office was smaller than her previous one, but it had large windows overlooking the courtyard and a more personal feel. She was unpacking boxes when he arrived, surrounded by books and files and the detritus of a career in transition. "Hi," she said, looking up. "Sorry about the mess. I'm trying to make this space feel like mine." "It's fine. Congratulations on the move." "Thank you. It feels right, which is new for me. Usually career decisions feel strategic or necessary. This one just feels honest." She set down the book she'd been holding and turned to face him fully. "I wanted to talk to you away from everyone else, to make sure we're on the same page about what happens next." Lucas's heart hammered. "Okay." Claire moved to close the office door, then leaned against her desk, her arms crossed loosely. "I meant what I said at the picnic. This move was about me choosing what I actually want instead of what looks good on paper. And part of what I want is the freedom to explore whatever this is between us without professional complications." "I want that too. But we need to be realistic, Lucas. This isn't going to be simple. We work for the same company. People are already speculating, and you have Emma to consider. Her needs, her feelings, her well-being. That has to come first." "It always does." "I know. Which is why I need to ask you directly. Are you sure about this? About us? Because if you have doubts, we should address them now before we get any further." Lucas took a step closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm terrified. I'm terrified of screwing this up, of hurting Emma, of losing you before we've even really begun. But I'm also more certain about this than I've been about anything since Sarah died. You make me want things I thought I'd never want again. You make me feel alive instead of just functional. And Emma adores you, which matters more than anything." Claire's expression softened, vulnerability breaking through her composed exterior. "I'm terrified too. I've spent so long being self-sufficient, keeping people at arm's length, measuring everything by professional metrics. Being with you and Emma, letting myself want that kind of connection, it's completely outside my comfort zone." "Maybe that's good. Maybe comfort zones are overrated." She laughed softly. "Maybe they are." She pushed off the desk, closing the distance between them, until she was standing close enough that Lucas could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "I want to do this right. I want to take it slow, let Emma set the pace, build something real instead of rushing into something that burns out quickly." "Agreed. Slow and steady. But I also want to be honest about my feelings instead of hiding behind professional distance." She reached up, her hand resting lightly against his chest, right over his heart. "I care about you, Lucas. More than I've cared about anyone in a very long time, and I want to see where this goes." Lucas covered her hand with his, feeling the warmth of her palm through his shirt. "I care about you too, and I think—" He paused, gathering courage. "I think Sarah would approve. She always wanted me to keep living fully, to not let grief make me small. Being with you feels like honoring that instead of betraying it." "Tell me about her," Claire said quietly. "I want to know about the woman who shaped you, who gave you Emma." So Lucas did. They sat on the small couch in Claire's new office, and he talked about Sarah, her boundless optimism, her terrible cooking, her gift for making friends wherever she went. He talked about their courtship, their wedding, the joy of Emma's arrival, and the terror of new parenthood. And finally, gently, he talked about her death and the impossible months that followed. Claire listened without interrupting, her hand finding his and holding on. When he finished, she said, "She sounds like she was an amazing person." "She was, and she left me with Emma, who's the best parts of both of us. That's a gift I'll never take for granted. Emma told me I should come see her butterfly garden soon. I'd really like that if you think it's appropriate." Lucas felt warmth bloom in his chest. "I think it's very appropriate. How about this weekend? Saturday afternoon? Nothing formal, just you coming by to see the garden, maybe staying for dinner if you want. I'd love that. They sat quietly for a moment, hands still linked, the future spreading out before them with equal parts promise and uncertainty. Then Claire's phone buzzed with a reminder about a meeting, breaking the spell. I should go, Lucas said, standing. But Claire? Yes? Thank you. For being brave enough to make this move. For being honest about what you want. For being willing to take a chance on us. She stood as well, and for a moment Lucas thought she might kiss him. Instead, she squeezed his hand gently and said, Thank you for making me want to take the chance in the first place. The rest of the week passed in a blur of work and anticipation. Lucas told Emma that Claire would be visiting on Saturday, and his daughter's excitement was almost overwhelming. She insisted on weeding her butterfly garden until it was perfect, on baking cookies with Lucas's mother, on choosing her outfit 3 days in advance. What if she doesn't like the garden? Emma worried on Friday night. She'll love it. She's a lepidopterist, remember? Someone who studies butterflies. Your garden is exactly the kind of thing she'll appreciate. What if she thinks I talk too much about butterflies? Lucas pulled Emma into a hug. Butterfly, Claire likes you exactly as you are. She wouldn't be coming to visit if she didn't want to hear all about your garden and your butterfly facts and everything else that makes you you. Emma relaxed slightly. Okay, but I'm still nervous. That's normal. I'm nervous too. You are? Of course. When you care about people and want them to be happy, it's natural to feel nervous about making good impressions. Emma considered this. Do you care about Ms. Claire the way you cared about Mommy? The question was direct and deserved an honest answer. Lucas chose his words carefully. I care about her differently than I cared about Mommy. Mommy will always be special. She was my first love, your mom, the person who helped make you. But that doesn't mean I can't also care about Claire in her own way. Love isn't a limited resource, baby. The heart has room for lots of people. Like how I love you and Grandma and my friends at school, all differently, but all a lot? Exactly like that. Emma nodded, satisfied with this explanation. I think Mommy would like Ms. Claire. They both care about you being happy. The simple wisdom nearly broke Lucas. I think you're right. Saturday arrived sunny and cool, perfect autumn weather. Lucas and Emma spent the morning preparing, cleaning the house, arranging cookies on a plate, making sure every butterfly plant was properly labeled with its scientific name, which Emma had painstakingly learned. At 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Emma grabbed Lucas's hand, suddenly shy now that the moment had arrived. It's okay, Lucas said gently. It's just Claire. He opened the door to find Claire standing there looking nervous and hopeful in jeans and a soft green sweater, holding a small potted plant. Hi, she said. I brought a butterfly bush. I thought maybe Emma might want to add it to her garden. Emma's shyness evaporated instantly. A real butterfly bush, that's perfect. They attract all kinds of butterflies, especially swallowtails and painted ladies. She grabbed Claire's free hand. Come see where we should plant it. Claire shot Lucas an amused, slightly overwhelmed look as Emma dragged her toward the backyard. Lucas followed, his heart full of affection for both of them. The butterfly garden was Emma's pride and joy, a carefully planned space with milkweed, coneflowers, black-eyed Susans, and various other nectar-rich plants. She'd even created a small water feature using a shallow dish and some stones. Signs marked different areas with facts about butterfly life cycles and migration patterns. Emma, this is incredible, Claire said, genuine wonder in her voice. You've created a perfect habitat. The plant spacing, the water source, even the native species selection, it's better designed than some professional butterfly gardens I've seen. Emma glowed under the praise. Really? Really? You have a gift for this. Claire knelt beside one of the milkweed plants, examining it closely. Have you had any monarchs lay eggs this season? 3! And I've been watching the caterpillars grow. 2 of them are in chrysalises now. Want to see? For the next hour, Lucas watched as Emma showed Claire every detail of her garden, explaining her plant choices and butterfly observations with the passionate expertise only children could muster. Claire listened with complete attention, asking thoughtful questions and sharing her own knowledge in ways that enhanced rather than overshadowed Emma's expertise. Lucas's mother appeared at one point with lemonade and cookies, introducing herself to Claire with barely concealed curiosity and approval. They chatted easily while Emma continued her garden tour, and Lucas saw his mother's expression soften as she watched Claire interact with Emma. Eventually, Emma's boundless energy began to flag. Claire suggested they plant the butterfly bush together, and they spent a happy half-hour digging and positioning, their hands dirty, and their conversation flowing easily. After washing up, they moved inside for cookies and more lemonade. Emma showed Claire her butterfly drawings and the charts she'd made tracking migration patterns. Claire examined each one seriously, offering genuine observations and praise. "Miss Claire, will you read with me?" Emma asked, holding out her favorite book about butterfly metamorphosis. "I'd love to." They settled on the couch together, Emma tucked against Claire's side, and Lucas's heart did complicated things watching them. Claire read with expression and enthusiasm, stopping to discuss the illustrations and answer Emma's questions. It looked natural, right? Like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. Lucas's mother caught his eye from across the room and smiled knowingly. When the book was finished, Emma yawned hugely. "I'm not tired," she insisted, even as her eyes drooped. "How about a quiet activity?" Claire suggested. "We could do a puzzle, or you could show me more drawings." "Will you stay for dinner?" Emma asked. "Daddy makes really good pasta, and we could have more time to talk about butterflies." Claire looked at Lucas, a question in her eyes. He nodded. "I'd love to stay for dinner," Claire said. Lucas's mother offered to help with dinner, which was her subtle way of giving Lucas time in the kitchen with Claire while keeping Emma occupied. They worked side by side, chopping vegetables and boiling water, falling into an easy rhythm. "Your mother is wonderful," Claire said quietly. "I can see where you get your kindness from. She's been my anchor since Sarah died. I literally couldn't have done this without her." "You're lucky to have her, and she's lucky to have you and Emma." Claire paused in her chopping. Being here, meeting your family, being part of your Saturday, it feels important, like crossing a threshold." "It is important. You're important." She met his eyes, her expression vulnerable. "I haven't been part of a family in a long time. I've forgotten what it feels like to belong somewhere beyond a job title." "You belong here," Lucas said simply. "Emma adores you. My mother clearly approves, and I—" He stopped, the words catching in his throat. "You what?" "I'm falling for you. Have been since Chicago, probably. Maybe even before that in all those meetings where you challenged me and made me better at my job. I'm falling for you, and it terrifies me, but I don't want to stop." Claire set down her knife, her hands trembling slightly. "I'm falling for you too, for your dedication to Emma, for the way you see the good in people, for how you've rebuilt your life after devastating loss. I'm falling for you, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to figure it out." They stood there in Lucas's kitchen, the pasta boiling forgotten, the world narrowed to just the two of them, and this moment of mutual vulnerability and hope. Then Emma called from the living room, "Is dinner ready yet? I'm starving." The spell broke. They both laughed, and Claire reached out to squeeze Lucas's hand briefly before returning to the vegetables. Dinner was chaotic and wonderful. Emma talked nonstop. Lucas's mother shared embarrassing childhood stories about Lucas, and Claire laughed more than Lucas had ever heard her laugh. It felt like family, warm and messy and real. After dinner, Emma started fading fast, the excitement of the day catching up with her. Lucas's mother offered to handle bedtime, giving Lucas the chance to walk Claire to her car. They stood in the driveway under the early evening sky, reluctant to say goodbye. "Thank you for today," Claire said, "for welcoming me into your home, your life, for trusting me with Emma. Thank you for being exactly who you are, for reading butterfly books and getting your hands dirty in the garden, for making Emma feel special." "She is special. You both are." They stood close together, and Lucas felt the pull toward her like gravity. Slowly giving her time to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. "Good night, Claire." "Good night, Lucas." He watched her drive away, then turned to find his mother watching from the doorway with a knowing smile. "Don't say it," he warned. "I don't have to. Your face says it all." She pulled him into a hug. "I'm happy for you, honey. She's good for you. Good for all of us." Upstairs, Lucas found Emma already in bed but still awake, her eyes bright. Did Miss Claire have a good time? She asked. I think she had a wonderful time. Good, because I really like her, Daddy. I like her a lot. I like her a lot too, Butterfly. Is she going to be your girlfriend? Lucas sat on the edge of Emma's bed, brushing hair back from her face. Maybe. Would that be okay with you? Emma considered this seriously. Will she try to be my new mom? No. You only have one mom, and nobody will ever replace her. But Claire could be someone else special in your life, someone who cares about you and spends time with you and helps take care of you. Like another kind of family? Yes, exactly like that. Emma smiled sleepily. I think that would be nice. Mommy would want you to be happy, and Ms. Claire makes you smile real smiles, not just pretend ones. Lucas felt tears prick his eyes. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just don't always listen. He laughed through the emotion. I'm listening now, Butterfly. I promise. The weeks that followed settled into a new rhythm. Claire became a regular presence in their lives. Saturday visits that included butterfly garden updates and family dinners, occasional weeknight appearances when work schedules aligned, phone calls where she and Emma discussed the latest developments in monarch migration. At work, they maintained professional boundaries, careful not to give colleagues ammunition for gossip. But Lucas saw Claire's confidence growing as she settled into her new role, tackling innovative projects with the same intensity she'd brought to operations, but with more visible joy. One evening in late October, Claire stayed after dinner to help Emma with a school project about butterfly conservation. Lucas watched from the kitchen as they worked together at the dining table, their heads bent over poster board and markers, their conversation flowing easily. His mother appeared beside him, drying the last of the dinner dishes. You should tell her, she said quietly. Tell her what? That you love her. Anyone with eyes can see it, Lucas. The way you look at her, the way you light up when she walks in the room. Don't wait for the perfect moment. There's never a perfect moment. Lucas thought about that as he finished cleaning up. His mother was right. He did love Claire. Loved her sharp mind and dry humor, loved how she treated Emma with genuine respect, loved the way she'd been brave enough to change her entire career trajectory for a chance at happiness. After Emma was in bed, Lucas found Claire on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket against the October chill, watching the empty butterfly garden. They've all migrated south by now, she said as he joined her. Every monarch in this region is somewhere on the journey to Mexico. Thousands of miles, multiple generations, all following an instinct they don't understand but trust completely. Pretty remarkable. It is. Emma was telling me earlier that some butterflies who've never made the journey still know exactly where to go. Genetic memory, passed down through generations. They trust the pattern, even though they've never experienced it themselves. Lucas understood the metaphor she was drawing. Sometimes you have to trust the journey even when you don't know the destination. Claire turned to look at him, her face soft in the porch light. Is that what you're doing? With us? Yes, and I don't regret it for a second. He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. I love you, Claire. I'm in love with you. I know it soon, and I know we're still figuring this out, but I wanted you to know. Her breath caught, her eyes shining. I love you too. I've been terrified to say it, afraid it would make everything too real, too vulnerable. But I do. I love you. And I love Emma, and I love this life you've welcomed me into. Lucas pulled her closer, and this time when he kissed her, it was full and deep and filled with promise. Not in his kitchen with pasta boiling over or in a parking lot with families around, but here, in the quiet privacy of his back porch, with nothing between them but honesty and hope. When they finally pulled apart, Claire was smiling through tears. I never thought I'd have this, she said. A family, a home, people who love me for who I am instead of what I achieve. You've given me something I didn't even know I was missing. You've given us something too. Emma needs more than just me. She needs people who expand her world, who challenge her to grow. And I need someone who reminds me I'm more than just Emma's dad or a project manager. I'm a person who deserves happiness. They sat together under the stars, wrapped in blankets and each other, talking about the future with a certainty that came from trust rather than guarantees. They talked about holidays and weekends, about eventually introducing Claire to Emma as his girlfriend officially, about what it might look like if Claire stayed over sometimes when Emma was at sleepovers. I want to meet your sisters, Lucas said, if you're willing to let me into that part of your life. Claire stiffened slightly. They're not easy. We have years of distance to overcome. So we'll take it slow. Maybe start with a phone call, see where it goes, but they're part of you, and I want to know all the parts. They'll probably think I'm crazy, changing jobs, dating a colleague, getting involved with a man who has a child. It's not what they expected from me. Maybe that's good. Maybe surprising them is the first step to surprising yourself. She leaned her head on his shoulder. I called my younger sister last week. We talked for 2 hours. She cried when I told her about you and Emma. Said she'd been worried I'd forgotten how to let people in. And have you? Forgotten? I thought I had. But then this impossible night in Chicago happened, and you reminded me that life could be more than achievements and accolades. You reminded me how to want things just for myself. They sat in comfortable silence, the night settling around them. In the distance, Lucas could hear the sounds of suburban evening, cars on nearby streets, a dog barking, the rustle of wind through trees. Normal, everyday sounds that felt profound in their ordinariness. This was what happiness looked like, Lucas realized. Not grand gestures or dramatic moments, but quiet evenings on the porch with someone you loved, talking about sisters and butterflies and the beautiful uncertainty of the future. Inside, through the window, he could see Emma's darkened room, could imagine her sleeping peacefully surrounded by her butterfly drawings and the comfort of knowing she was loved. She was the center of his world, would always be the center. But now there was room for more, for Claire, for the possibility of growing their family in ways he hadn't imagined. Stay, he said impulsively. Not tonight, but soon. Stay over when Emma's at a sleepover, or come for Sunday breakfast. Start leaving a toothbrush in the bathroom and an extra sweater in the closet. Let this be your home too, gradually, at whatever pace feels right. Claire lifted her head to look at him, her eyes searching his face. Are you sure? That's a big step. I'm sure. We don't have to rush anything, but I want you to know you're welcome here, always. Then yes, I'd like that. A toothbrush and a sweater, and Sunday breakfast. All of it. They kissed again, sealing the promise, and Lucas felt something settle in his chest, a peace he hadn't known since Sarah died. Not the absence of grief, which would always be part of him, but the presence of new joy existing alongside it. Room for both the past and the future, for memory and possibility. November arrived with its first frost, turning Emma's butterfly garden dormant for the winter. But Emma was already planning next year's additions, drawing up elaborate schematics that included the butterfly bush Claire had given her and several new native plants she'd researched. Ms. Claire says next spring we might see different species, Emma explained over breakfast one Saturday. Claire was coming over later and Emma was planning their activities with military precision. Not just monarchs, but maybe some swallowtails and painted ladies. Sounds like you two have big plans. We do. And Daddy? Emma looked at him seriously. Can I start calling her just Claire instead of Ms. Claire, since she's part of our family now? Lucas felt his throat tighten with emotion. I think she'd like that very much, Butterfly, but maybe ask her first, make sure she's comfortable with it. When Claire arrived that afternoon, Emma immediately pulled her aside for a serious conversation. Lucas watched from the kitchen as Emma asked her question, saw Claire's face transform with joy, saw her pull Emma into a tight hug. Of course you can call me Claire, she said, loud enough for Lucas to hear. I'd be honored. They spent the afternoon raking leaves and planning the garden expansion, Claire fitting seamlessly into the weekend routine. She helped Emma with homework, joined in a board game that Lucas's mother won with suspicious ease, and stayed for dinner without needing to be asked. After Emma was in bed, the three adults sat in the living room with coffee and comfortable conversation. I'm going to head home, Lucas's mother announced, though her knowing smile suggested she was creating space for Lucas and Claire. Lucas, walk me out? At her car, she pulled him into a hug. I'm proud of you, honey, for being brave enough to love again, for building something beautiful with Claire. I couldn't have done it without you, Mom, without you taking care of Emma, giving me space to figure this out. That's what family does. We make room for each other to grow. She patted his cheek gently. Sarah would be proud too, of how you've honored her memory while still choosing to live fully. That's the greatest tribute you could give her. After his mother left, Lucas returned to find Claire tidying up the coffee cups, moving around his kitchen like she belonged there. Because she did belong there, he realized. She'd found her place in his life not by trying to fill the void Sarah left, but by creating her own space alongside it. Emma's butterfly garden is going to be magnificent next spring, Claire said, rinsing mugs in the sink. She has such vision for someone so young. She gets that from Sarah, the ability to see possibility where others see just dirt and seeds. Lucas moved beside her, taking a dish towel to dry. Thank you for nurturing that in her, for taking her interests seriously. How could I not? She's remarkable, and she's part of you, which makes her even more precious. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence, then migrated to the couch. Claire tucked herself against Lucas's side, fitting perfectly in the curve of his arm. I talked to my sister again yesterday, she said. The older one, Margaret. I told her about you and Emma, really told her, about how happy I am, how different my life looks now. How did she react? She was surprised but pleased, asked when she could meet you both. I told her maybe at Thanksgiving, if you're comfortable with that. Lucas felt a flutter of nerves but also excitement. Meeting Claire's family was another threshold, another step toward fully integrating their lives. I'd like that. Though fair warning, my mother will absolutely grill your sisters about their intentions toward her son. Claire laughed. I'd expect nothing less. Family looking out for family. Is that what we are now? Family? She tilted her head up to look at him, her expression tender. I think we've been family for a while now. We just needed time to acknowledge it. Lucas kissed her, soft and slow, pouring everything he felt into the gesture. When they finally pulled apart, Claire's eyes were shining. I need to tell you something, she said. Something I've been thinking about for a few weeks. Okay. I want to be more than your girlfriend, more than the woman who visits on weekends. I want to be part of Emma's life in a real, meaningful way. Not trying to replace Sarah. I would never do that. But as someone who loves her and wants to help raise her. She paused, gathering courage. I want us to build a life together, Lucas. All three of us. Lucas felt his heart expand, making room for this new possibility. Are you saying what I think you're saying? I'm saying I want a future with you and Emma. I want weekend pancakes and butterfly gardens and homework help and all the beautiful, messy reality of being a family. I want to wake up next to you and read bedtime stories to Emma and build something that lasts. Claire, He had to stop, emotion clogging his throat. That's everything I want too, but are you sure? This means giving up a lot of the freedom you valued. It means PTA meetings and sick days and negotiations about bedtime. I know, and a year ago that would have terrified me. But now it sounds like exactly the life I want. You and Emma have shown me that achievement without connection is hollow. I'd rather have this, us, together, than any corner office or executive title. Lucas pulled her close, holding her tight. Then let's do it. Not tomorrow. We'll take our time, make sure Emma's ready, do this right. But yes, let's build this life together. They sat holding each other while the house settled into nighttime quiet around them. Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, dreaming her butterfly dreams. Outside, the November wind rustled through bare trees, the garden dormant but full of potential for spring. This was happiness, Lucas thought. Not the absence of grief or challenge, but the presence of love strong enough to hold space for both joy and sorrow, memory and hope. Sarah would always be part of their story, woven into the fabric of who he and Emma were. But there was room for Claire too, room for new chapters and different happiness. The journey from that stormy night in Chicago to this quiet November evening had been neither straight nor simple. But like the monarchs Emma loved so much, they'd followed an instinct they didn't fully understand, trusting the pattern even when the destination was unclear. And they'd arrived exactly where they needed to be, together, whole, and ready for whatever came next. Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. I had a dream about butterflies, she said sleepily. Come here, butterfly. Lucas held out his arms, and Emma padded over, climbing onto the couch between him and Claire. Was it a good dream? Claire asked, brushing Emma's hair back gently. Yeah. We were all in the butterfly garden, and there were thousands of monarchs everywhere. And Mommy was there too, but she was made of light. She told me she was happy we have Claire now. Lucas felt tears prick his eyes. Claire's hand found his over Emma's head, squeezing gently. "That sounds like a beautiful dream," Claire said softly. "It was. And when I woke up, I wasn't sad. I was just happy." Emma yawned hugely. "Can I stay here with you guys for a bit?" "Of course," Lucas said. They sat together on the couch, Emma between them, her breathing gradually evening out as she drifted back to sleep. Lucas met Claire's eyes over Emma's blonde head and saw his own wonder reflected there. This was their family, built from loss and courage, from unexpected hotel rooms and butterfly gardens, from the brave choice to risk loving again. Not perfect, but real. Not without challenges, but full of grace. And as Lucas sat there with his daughter sleeping between him and the woman he loved, he understood what Emma's dream had been trying to tell him. Sarah's love hadn't disappeared. It had transformed, making room for new love to grow, like a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis, beautiful and different and right. The future stretched ahead, full of possibility and promise. There would be challenges, certainly. Merging lives was never simple. But they would face them together, as a family, with patience and love and the understanding that the best things in life were worth the complications. Outside, the November night deepened toward winter, but inside, in the warm glow of the living room, 3 people found the courage to believe in new beginnings, found the grace to honor the past while embracing the future, found, against all odds and expectations, the simple miracle of happiness. And that, Lucas thought as he held his family close, was more than enough. It was everything.